Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol of unstoppable human ambition, a woman who refused to be grounded by anything, not even the sky itself. By 1937, she had already become a legend, soaring across oceans with a calm confidence that made the impossible look effortless. But on July 2nd of that year, during her attempt to fly around the world, something happened that would turn her name into one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, were flying a Lockheed Electra, heading toward a tiny speck in the Pacific called Howland Island. They were low on fuel, exhausted, and battling unpredictable weather. As Amelia's voice crackled over the radio, the Coast Guard ship Itasca listened desperately. Her final transmission was chillingly calm. "We are running on line 157337. We will repeat this message. We are running north and south." Then, nothing. No crash, no debris, no bodies, no aircraft. It was as if the ocean simply swallowed them whole. In the decades that followed, the theories only grew stranger. Some believed Earhart's plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the Pacific, sinking into one of the deepest regions on Earth. Others argued she reached the remote Gardner Island, now Nikumaroro, and died as a castaway, her remains scattered by the elements. Even more dramatic theories claimed she was captured by the Japanese, accused of being a spy and executed in secret. And then there are the believers who swear she survived, changed her identity, and lived a hidden life far from fame. But the most chilling part? Despite modern sonar scans, underwater drones, island excavations, and decades of searching, nothing definitive has ever been found. Amelia Earhart didn't just disappear. She slipped into legend, becoming a ghost forever drifting between the clouds and the sea. In 1587, a group of 115 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They came with hope, ambition, and the dream of building England's first permanent colony in the New World. Families, craftsmen, soldiers, even a newborn baby named Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America. For a time, things seemed hopeful. They built homes, planted crops, and tried to coexist with the surrounding tribes. But then their governor, John White, sailed back to England for supplies. A quick trip that turned into a 3-year delay thanks to war with Spain. When White finally returned in 1590, he expected to find a struggling colony, or at least some sign of life. What he found instead was a horror story carved into silence. The settlement was abandoned, houses dismantled, fortifications gone. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no graves. Just one mysterious clue carved into a wooden post: Croatoan. It was the only footprint left behind by 115 vanished souls. White searched the nearby Croatoan island, convinced the colonists had relocated, but violent storms forced him back to England, and he never returned. For centuries, historians, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists have chased the truth. Were the settlers absorbed into a local tribe? Did they starve and scatter into the wilderness? Were they wiped out by disease, conflict, or something more sinister? Or, the most unsettling theory, did they leave that message as a warning, not a destination? Modern digs have found unsettling hints: European stones buried deep in native villages, strange artifacts, and DNA traces that don't match any tribal history. But none of it brings an answer powerful enough to close the case. To this day, The lost colony of Roanoke stands as one of history's greatest vanishings. 115 people, families and children, wiped from reality as if the land itself swallowed them. No bodies, no tracks, no witnesses. Just that single, cryptic word whispering across 4 centuries. Croatoan.
On November 24, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve, a quiet, well-dressed man walked into the Portland airport, lit a cigarette, and bought a one-way ticket under the name Dan Cooper. Nobody knew that within hours he would become the most legendary ghost in American crime history. Once on Northwest Orient Flight 305, Cooper sat calmly in seat 18E. He ordered a bourbon and soda, opened a briefcase, and showed the flight attendant something that changed everything: a neat row of wires and what looked like explosives. He leaned in and said the words no pilot ever wants to hear. "Miss, I have a bomb." His demand was simple: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a refueled plane waiting in Seattle. The airline complied. Passengers were let off unharmed and unaware of the chaos unfolding. Cooper, calm as a man reading a newspaper, released everyone except the crew and ordered the pilots to fly the plane low and slow toward Mexico. And then, somewhere over the freezing wilderness of Washington State, in the middle of a storm, with the rear staircase lowered and the wind screaming through the cabin, D.B. Cooper jumped into darkness, into rain, into legend. When the FBI searched the drop zone, they found nothing. No parachute, no body, no trace of a man who should have died on impact. Only a few clues surfaced over the decades, including a bundle of Cooper's ransom money discovered by a boy on a riverbank in 1980. But that finding only deepened the mystery. If the money was there, where was Cooper? Thousands of suspects have been investigated: military parachutists, escaped convicts, disgruntled workers, local loners with secret pasts. Every few years, someone claims to be him. Every theory sparks new obsessions, but the truth remains locked somewhere in that stormy night sky. Did Cooper die in the fall? Did he land safely and live out his life quietly, smiling every time the FBI mentioned his name? Or is the real Cooper still out there, the only man to pull off the perfect aerial heist and disappear forever? More than 50 years later, the case is still open, still unsolved, still haunting. D.B. Cooper didn't just vanish. He walked off the edge of the world and left nothing behind but a legend.
Jimmy Hoffa wasn't just a labor leader. He was a force of nature. The man who turned the Teamsters Union into one of the most powerful organizations in America. He fought corporations, negotiated with presidents, and built an empire with sheer determination. And a few dangerous friendships. Because behind the speeches and the contracts, Hoffa had ties to the American mafia, ties he believed he controlled. But by 1975, those ties were tightening around his neck. On July 30th of that year, Jimmy Hoffa drove to the Motch's Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. He was supposed to meet 2 high-ranking mob figures, Tony Provenzano and Anthony Giacalone, men he once trusted, men he now feared. Hoffa waited in the parking lot. Minutes passed. Then an unfamiliar car pulled up. Hoffa got inside. It was the last time anyone ever saw him alive. When he didn't return home, his family called the police. Agents rushed to the restaurant. Hoffa's car was there, his keys, gone. His body? Never found. No ransom, no message, no trace. It was as if the most famous labor leader in the world had simply vanished into thin air. Theories exploded instantly. Some claimed Hoffa was taken to a Detroit house, executed, and cremated in a mob-controlled incinerator so hot that not even bone fragments remained. Others believed he was buried beneath the end zone of a sports stadium, encased in concrete like a mafia time capsule. Another theory insisted he was shipped out in a refrigerated truck and dumped deep in the Great Lakes, a burial far below where any diver could ever reach. The FBI dug up fields. They tore apart barns. They scanned rivers, swamps, landfills, and even backyards. Nothing. Not a tooth. Not a bone. Not a shred of fabric. Hoffa's legacy became a shadow, a ghost who refuses to reveal his final resting place. Did the mafia silence him to protect secrets? Was he eliminated because he planned to reclaim his union power? Or did someone entirely unexpected make the first move? To this day, Jimmy Hoffa remains one of America's greatest unsolved disappearances, a man too big to kill, too influential to let live, and too dangerous to leave walking around. He stepped into a car on a warm July afternoon and melted into the underworld. Forever.
On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, heading toward Beijing on what should have been a routine night flight. On board were 239 people, families, tourists, business travelers, all settling in for a quiet journey across the South China Sea. But less than an hour after takeoff, something happened that defies all logic, all technology, and all expectations of the modern world. At 1:21 a.m., the aircraft's transponder, its electronic heartbeat, went silent. Not broken, not damaged, just switched off. Moments later, the plane made a sharp, deliberate turn away from its route. It flew back across Malaysia, cutting through military radar zones as if trying to hide in plain sight. Then it crossed the Andaman Sea and vanished from radar entirely. Gone. A Boeing 777, one of the safest aircraft ever built, erased from existence. For hours, no one realized the plane wasn't where it was supposed to be. Only later did investigators uncover a trail of faint, ghost-like handshakes between the plane and an orbiting satellite, clues that MH370 continued flying for 7 more hours into one of the most remote places on Earth, the southern Indian Ocean. But here's the nightmare. There was no distress call, no emergency signal, no explanation. The largest search operation in aviation history scanned underwater mountains and trenches deeper than Everest. Dozens of governments joined forces, billions of dollars were spent, and still nothing. Only a handful of debris pieces washed up on distant beaches years later, and none of them answered the haunting question: what actually happened on board MH370? Theories range from mechanical failure to sudden decompression, to hijacking, to fire, to a deliberate act by someone in the cockpit. Some experts say the plane was flown with chilling precision, avoiding radar, aiming for the deepest parts of the ocean. Others argue it broke apart in midair. Some believe it landed somewhere secretly. And the most unsettling theory? That someone turned the plane into a ghost ship, flying on autopilot until fuel ran out and it plunged silently into the sea. No black box, no bodies, no clear answers. Just an aircraft-sized hole in reality. More than a decade later, Flight MH370 remains the greatest aviation mystery of the 21st century, a reminder that even in an age of satellites, global tracking, and nonstop surveillance, a massive jet can still disappear into the night sky, leaving behind 239 souls and a question the world may never answer. How can something so big, simply vanish.
On December 4th, 1872, a Canadian ship named the Dei Gratia spotted a strange silhouette drifting aimlessly across the Atlantic. As they approached, they realized it wasn't just any vessel. It was the Mary Celeste, a merchant brigantine that should have been halfway to Italy. But something was horribly wrong. The ship was sailing with nobody on board. When the crew of the Dei Gratia boarded the Mary Celeste, they found a scene frozen in time. The sails were partly set. The cargo was untouched. The personal belongings of the crew were still neatly stored. Food was on the table. The lifeboat was missing, but there was no sign of struggle, no blood, no violence, no damage. It looked as if the entire crew had simply stood up mid-meal, stepped off the ship, and evaporated into the sea. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their young daughter Sophia, and 7 experienced sailors, all gone without a trace. What makes this disappearance so chilling is that the Mary Celeste was in perfectly good condition. She wasn't sinking, she wasn't damaged. She had enough food and water for 6 months. Even her valuable cargo of industrial alcohol hadn't been touched. It was a ship ready to sail, but missing the very people who gave it life. Theories multiplied like storm clouds. Some believed the crew abandoned ship because of alcohol fumes leaking from the cargo, fearing an explosion. Others claimed pirates struck, yet nothing was stolen. More dramatic theories suggest sea monsters, underwater earthquakes, or a rogue wave that forced them into the lifeboat only for them to drift endlessly into the abyss. Then there are the conspiracy whispers. Mutiny, insanity, secret insurance plots, or a cover-up involving something far more sinister. But here's the darkest detail. Whatever happened, it must have been so sudden, so terrifying, that everyone aboard chose to leave a perfectly healthy ship for an open lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic. The Mary Celeste itself was salvaged and continued sailing for years, but the truth behind its ghostly voyage has never been found. No lifeboat, no bodies, no answers. Just a fully functioning ship, silently gliding across the ocean, a floating tomb without the dead. To this day, the Mary Celeste remains one of the ocean's greatest enigmas, a ghost ship that continues to whisper the question, what could scare an entire crew off a perfectly safe vessel?
Ambrose Bierce was no ordinary writer. He was a war veteran who survived some of the bloodiest battles of the American Civil War, a journalist feared for his razor-sharp words, and the author of dark, chilling stories that felt almost prophetic. His nickname? Bitter Bierce, a man who had seen too much death to pretend the world was gentle. But in 1913, at the age of 71, Bierce did something no one expected. He left his comfortable life in America and headed straight into the chaos of the Mexican Revolution. He claimed he wanted to witness real war again, the kind he remembered from his youth. He wrote his last known letter to a friend, ending with the haunting line, "As to me, I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination." And then Ambrose Bierce vanished from history. Witnesses say he traveled with rebel leader Pancho Villa's army, watching battles from horseback with the calm of a man who had seen it all before. Some claim they saw him in the dusty town of Chihuahua. Others say he crossed the desert with a military column. A few insist he was executed by firing squad in the village of Sierra Mojada. But there is no body, no grave, no trace. He simply disappeared. Over the years, theories have multiplied like pages in a book no one finished. Did he die in combat, buried in a nameless pit? Was he killed by bandits for the coins in his pocket? Did he fake his death to end his life in anonymity? Or in a twist worthy of his own dark fiction, did Bierce purposely walk into Mexico to vanish forever, turning his own life into the final unsolvable story? He didn't just disappear, he authored his own vanishing.
On Christmas Eve 1945, the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia was alive with holiday energy. 9 children laughing, lights glowing, presents waiting. It was supposed to be a night of warmth, celebration, and family. But before dawn, the Sodder home would be nothing but ashes, and 5 of the Sodder children would be gone forever. At around 1 a.m., a strange noise hit the roof, like a heavy object bouncing off the shingles. Minutes later, smoke filled the house. Flames spread with unnatural speed, swallowing the stairway before anyone could react. George and Jenny Sodder escaped with 4 of their children, but the other 5, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were trapped upstairs. George tried everything. He broke a window with his bare hands. He sprinted to grab his ladder, only to find it missing. He tried starting his trucks to ram the house. Both mysteriously wouldn't start. Neighbors tried calling the fire department, but the phone lines were dead. By the time firefighters arrived, 7 hours later, the house was gone. Here's where the nightmare begins. There were no bodies, not a single bone, not even teeth. Experts insisted the fire wasn't hot enough to completely cremate 5 children. Even the appliances in the basement were still recognizable. Yet the official explanation was simple. The children died in the fire. Case closed. But the Sodders didn't believe it, and soon the clues backed them up. A telephone repairman confirmed the family's phone line hadn't burned. It had been cut. A stranger had been spotted stealing a ladder down the road. A woman claimed she saw the missing children watching the flames from a passing car. A waitress in a nearby town said a group of kids matching their description came in at dawn, escorted by threatening men. Then came the most chilling detail. A woman in St. Louis claimed she saw a photograph of the Sodder girl Jenny in a Catholic convent. Another witness swore she saw the children in Florida with Italian-speaking adults. Years later, the Sodders received a mysterious photograph in the mail. A young man with their son Louis's exact facial features, now grown up. On the back was a cryptic message: "I love brother Frankie, eel lil boys, A90132. The envelope had no return address. George Sodder spent the rest of his life searching, hanging a massive billboard on Route 16 with the faces of his missing children, a billboard that stayed standing for nearly 40 years. Did someone kidnap the Sodder children? Was it revenge linked to George's outspoken political opinions? Was it a planned abduction disguised as a fire? Or did someone orchestrate the perfect Christmas tragedy to hide the truth forever? No remains, no footprints, no answers. The Sodder children didn't just vanish in a fire. They vanished into a mystery that still burns almost 80 years later.
In December 1926, the world's most famous mystery writer became the subject of a mystery far stranger than anything she had ever written. Agatha Christie, the Queen of Crime, the mastermind behind Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple, walked out of her home late at night and vanished. It began on December 3rd. Christie kissed her young daughter goodnight, stepped into her car, and drove off into the cold English darkness. The next morning, her car was found abandoned near a chalk pit, the headlights still on, the engine dead, and inside, a fur coat, some papers, and no sign of Agatha. What followed was chaos. Over 1,000 police officers, volunteers, and even fellow authors joined the search. Newspapers ran headlines calling it the mystery of the century. Search dogs combed the fields, divers searched lakes, psychics were brought in. But the woman who created some of literature's sharpest detectives had simply evaporated. For 11 days, no one knew if she was alive, kidnapped, hiding, or murdered. Rumors spread like wildfire. Had she suffered a breakdown? Was it a publicity stunt? Had she staged her own disappearance to frame her unfaithful husband? Or was she living out one of her own fictional plots? Then, on December 14th, Agatha Christie was found, alive, unharmed, and sitting calmly in a luxury hotel in Harrogate, registered under the name Mrs. Teresa Neely, the surname of her husband's mistress. She claimed she remembered nothing. She insisted she had no idea why she checked into that hotel. And she never explained the 11 missing days. Not once. Not in interviews. Not in her autobiography. Not even to friends. And so the theories continue. Some experts believe she entered a fugue state caused by overwhelming emotional stress, a psychological blackout where she fled without conscious control. Others believe she staged the disappearance to shame her cheating husband, hoping he'd feel the weight of the world searching for the wife he had betrayed. Some say she planned to commit suicide, but changed her mind. A few even believe she wanted to disappear forever until public pressure forced her return. The most unsettling truth? Even with her brilliant mind, Agatha Christie left no clues this time. No trail, no motive, no confession. She wrote over 60 novels, thousands of characters, and some of the greatest fictional mysteries ever told. But her own disappearance remains the one story she never solved and never wanted anyone else to solve either. Agatha Christie didn't just vanish. She became the only mystery even she refused to explain.
In 1961, Michael Rockefeller, heir to one of the richest and most powerful families in America, traveled to one of the most remote, untouched places on Earth, the swamps and jungles of Dutch New Guinea, home to tribes who had barely made contact with the outside world. He wasn't just an adventurer. He was an anthropologist obsessed with collecting tribal art, documenting cultures untouched by modern civilization. And that obsession would lead him into a place where even experienced explorers refused to go, the territory of the Asmat people, a group known for complex rituals and a long history of headhunting and cannibalism. On November 17, 1961, Rockefeller was traveling by catamaran along a wild stretch of coast when the boat capsized. Stranded miles from help, he made a terrifying decision. He tied 2 empty jerry cans to his body for flotation, looked at his Dutch companions, and said the words that would become infamous, "I think I can make it." Then he slipped into the water and began swimming toward shore, and disappeared.
A massive search operation launched instantly. Planes, helicopters, naval ships, hundreds of men scouring every river, every village, every shoreline. For days, the world waited for news. Millions watched. The Rockefellers held their breath. But Michael was never seen again. The official story? He drowned, swept away by currents, or devoured by sharks and crocodiles. But locals told a different story, one far more chilling. Whispers spread that Michael reached shore alive, that he was captured by an Osmat village seeking revenge for killings committed by Dutch officers years earlier, that he was ritually executed, his body used in ceremonial rites, his bones displayed in secret tribal houses. For decades, nothing could be proven. But in the 2000s, journalists uncovered testimonies from Asmat elders describing in disturbing detail how a foreigner matching Michael's exact description was killed shortly after the boat accident, taken as a symbolic act of justice in accordance with tribal law. Some spoke of carving knives, of painted bodies, of ceremonies meant to restore spiritual balance, and of a tall, pale outsider whose presence was never meant to be known.
In the early 1940s, Glenn Miller wasn't just a musician. He was a phenomenon. His orchestra defined the sound of an era. In the Mood, Moonlight Serenade, Chattanooga Choo Choo, his music wasn't background, it was the heartbeat of America. But at the height of his fame, Miller did something unexpected. He enlisted. He wanted to bring music to soldiers fighting overseas in World War II. Tour by tour, his orchestra lifted morale across Europe. Then came December 15th, 1944, a bitterly cold day in England. Miller boarded a tiny single-engine Norseman plane, heading to Paris, where he was scheduled to prepare a performance for troops celebrating the liberation of the city. With him were his friend, Lieutenant Colonel Norman Basel, and the pilot, John Morgan. There was no fanfare, no escort, just three men stepping into a small aircraft on a foggy airfield. The plane took off, and then it vanished. No radio calls, no mayday, no distress signal, just silence. When Miller failed to arrive in Paris, the U.S. Army launched a search. For days, aircraft scanned the freezing English Channel, but they found no wreckage, no oil slick, no bodies, nothing. It was as if the sky had swallowed the plane whole. The theories came fast. Some said the plane iced over and plunged into the water. Others claimed it was hit by bombs jettisoned from returning Allied bombers trying to lighten their load before landing. There were even darker whispers that Miller died in Paris under scandalous circumstances, and the crash story was invented to protect his image. Those rumors grew only stronger when the military quietly sealed certain records for decades. But the ice-cold truth remains. The English Channel is a graveyard. Its waters are brutal, churning and deep. If the plane went down, it would have shattered on impact and sunk instantly into darkness, forever out of reach. What makes the mystery so haunting is how ordinary the moment was. Glenn Miller wasn't on a spy mission or a dangerous flight behind enemy lines. It was supposed to be a short, routine hop, a musician heading to play music for soldiers who loved him. Instead, the man whose songs once filled ballrooms and radios around the world disappeared into the winter sky, leaving silence where his music had always been. No wreckage, no remains, no definitive answers. Glenn Miller didn't just vanish. He took his final flight into a fog thick enough to erase even a legend.
January 26, 1966. Australia Day. A bright, warm summer morning in Adelaide. The kind of day where families filled the beaches, children ran barefoot in the sand, and danger felt like something that only existed in stories. That morning, 3 siblings, Jane, age 9, Arna, age 7, and Grant, age 4, left their home in the quiet suburb of Somerton Park to spend a few carefree hours at Glenelg Beach. They had made the trip many times before. It was safe. It was normal. It was home. They boarded a bus at 8:45 a.m. They were expected back by lunch. They never came home. At first, their mother assumed they missed the bus. Then maybe they stayed to play longer. By late afternoon, worry began to crawl in. By nightfall, panic had taken over. The police were called. Search teams flooded the beaches, amusement arcades, parks, and back streets. But the first real clue didn't come from the search. It came from witnesses. Multiple people claimed they'd seen the Beaumont children with a tall, thin, blonde man, a stranger, who watched them closely, played with them on the sand, and even helped them buy food. Jane, the oldest, was shy, yet she seemed comfortable with him, too comfortable. Hours later, more witnesses came forward. The children were seen leaving the beach with the man, laughing, walking as if they knew him, heading toward the grassy sand dunes. That was the last confirmed sighting of the Beaumont children. What makes this case so disturbing is how a place so full of life could swallow 3 kids in broad daylight. No scream, no struggle, no trace. Investigators chased every possible lead. A suspicious man seen carrying a bundle away from the beach. A local pedophile with a history of stalking the area. A reclusive businessman rumored to have secret underground tunnels beneath his property. Even a psychic claimed the children were buried near a factory, a lead that sparked one of the largest digs in Australian history. Nothing was ever found. One of the darkest twists came years later, when a letter arrived at the Beaumont home, supposedly written by Jane. It claimed the children were alive, raised by a kind-hearted man who wanted to return them. Another letter followed, this time from the man himself. Police traced the letters. They were a cruel hoax by someone completely unrelated. The Beaumont parents were destroyed, emotionally, mentally, and eventually physically. Their marriage fell apart. They moved houses. They shut themselves away. But they never stopped hoping. Over the decades, the case inspired fear, folklore, and countless theories. Did the man lure them into a car? Did someone stalk them for weeks before striking? Were they taken by a predator traveling through the area? Or was it a carefully planned abduction that ended with the children being hidden forever? Today, nearly 60 years later, the disappearance of Jane, Arna, and Grant Beaumont remains Australia's most haunting mystery. A case so chilling it changed the country's parenting culture overnight. No bodies, no belongings, no answers. 3 children left for a day at the beach and vanished as if the sun burned their footprints off the sand. The Beaumont children didn't just disappear. They became the ghost story of an entire nation.
In the world of British high society, few names carried as much prestige or as much darkness as Lord Lucan. He was the charming aristocrat with the perfect suit, the perfect smile, and the perfect life. But beneath the elegance, he was a man drowning in debt, gambling losses, and a bitter custody battle that was tearing his world apart. Then came the night of November 7th, 1974, a night that would carve his name into criminal legend. Lucan's estranged wife, Veronica, staggered into a London pub, covered in blood, hysterical and shaking. She claimed her husband had attacked her. She escaped, barely. Inside the Lucan family home, the nanny, Sandra Rivet, was found brutally beaten to death in the basement. Police rushed to find Lord Lucan. He was gone. Before disappearing, he made several bizarre moves, phoning a friend, borrowing a car, and writing a chilling letter claiming he had stumbled upon an attacker and tried to help. But his story didn't match the evidence, not even close. Hours later, the borrowed car was found abandoned on the coast, smeared with blood. Inside were lead pipes wrapped in tape, identical to the murder weapon. Yet Lucan was nowhere to be found. What followed was one of the most sensational manhunts in British history. The aristocratic fugitive was reportedly spotted across the country, then across continents: Brazil, South Africa, New Zealand, even small villages where locals swore a mysterious English gentleman had lived under a fake identity. People claimed he fled with help from wealthy friends, a secret network of aristocrats protecting one of their own, hiding him in private estates and foreign safe houses. Others believed he killed himself, overwhelmed by the horror of what happened. But his body was never found. No clothes, no belongings, no trace. Theories grew wilder as decades passed. Some said Lucan crept aboard a ferry that night and threw himself into the channel. Others claimed he lived quietly in Africa, growing a beard, changing his name, and vanishing into the bush. One man in Goa even claimed to be Lucan, but DNA proved otherwise. The mystery only deepened in 2016, when a coroner officially declared Lord Lucan dead 42 years after he disappeared. But this ruling solved nothing. It only cemented the legend. Lord Lucan wasn't a ghost from the past. He was the aristocrat who slipped through the cracks of a world that protected its own, and then walked off the edge of history, leaving a trail of blood and endless questions. Did he run? Was he helped? Did he die that very night? One thing is certain: no man in a tailored suit ever vanished so completely or so controversially as Lord Lucan.
On December 17, 1967, Australia witnessed something so unbelievable, so surreal, that many people still refuse to accept it happened. A sitting prime minister, a man running an entire nation, walked into the ocean and never came back. Harold Holt wasn't just any politician. He was energetic, athletic, always outdoors, always pushing himself. But he also loved the sea, even the wild, dangerous waters of Cheviot Beach, a place known for savage currents and unpredictable waves. That Sunday, Holt invited friends to the beach for a casual afternoon swim. The weather was rough, the waves were violent, the water churned with hidden rips strong enough to tear apart boats. Everyone knew it was unsafe, but Holt smiled, shrugged off concern, and plunged into the surf anyway. Within seconds, he was pulled into the waves. A massive surge rolled over him. He went under and never resurfaced. His friends screamed for help. Rescuers rushed to the scene, but the Prime Minister had vanished, consumed by the ocean before anyone could reach him. Within hours, helicopters, naval ships, divers, and emergency crews launched one of the largest search operations in Australian history. They scoured the coastline, dragged the seabed, and swept miles of treacherous coastline. They found nothing. No body, no clothing, no debris, nothing. A sitting prime minister had simply dissolved into the sea. And that's when the theories exploded. Some believed it was a tragic accident.
Holt, weakened by exhaustion and a secret heart condition, caught in a deadly rip current. Others insisted he faked his own death to escape political pressure, scandals, and personal chaos. Then came the strangest of them all, that he was a Chinese spy dramatically extracted by a submarine waiting offshore. The government laughed it off, but the mystery kept growing. Even decades later, the questions still echo. Why would Holt enter the water on such a dangerous day? Why was he alone when he swam so far out? And how could such an enormous search fail to find anything? In 2005, the case was finally declared a death by accidental drowning. But that did nothing to calm the speculation or the eerie feeling that something about that day doesn't quite add up. Harold Holt remains the only world leader to vanish without a trace, swallowed by the ocean he loved and feared all at once. A prime minister walked into the surf, and the sea kept him forever.
The Flannan Isles are a lonely, wind-beaten cluster of rocks in the far northwest of Scotland, a place where the sea roars like a living creature and storms strike without warning. It's the last place on Earth where you'd want to be stranded, and exactly where 3 lighthouse keepers vanished without a trace. December 1900. The lighthouse on Elian Moor stopped sending its daily signals. Days passed. The sea grew darker. Ships passing by saw no movement, no light, no sign of life, only endless waves slamming against the cliff walls. On December 26th, a small relief crew finally reached the island. What they found has haunted sailors for more than a century. The lighthouse door was unlocked. Inside, the kitchen table was set, untouched as if the man had stepped out in the middle of a meal. Coats hung neatly on their hooks. A clock had stopped. A chair was overturned as if someone had left in a hurry. But the lighthouse was empty. Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, Donald MacArthur, gone. Vanished from a remote island where there was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. The logbook entries made the mystery even darker. Marshall wrote about violent storms battering the island, but there were no recorded storms in that region during those days. Another entry described strong winds and seas unlike anything I have ever seen. But again, the weather was calm, too calm. One entry simply read, "God is over all." When the crew searched outside, they found something even stranger. On one of the cliffs, heavy iron equipment, anchored deep into the rock, had been ripped out as if yanked by a giant hand. Nearby, pieces of twisted metal lay scattered like toys flung by a temper tantrum. But why would the men leave the lighthouse during a storm? Why were 2 coats missing, but the 3rd left behind? And how could all 3 men be taken by the sea without a single scream or surviving sea wave mark? Theories multiplied. Some believed a monstrous rogue wave, a freak wall of water, slammed into the island and swept them away instantly. Others argued there was a fight, a moment of panic, one man trying to save another, until all 3 were gone. A few insisted it was something more sinister: mutiny, madness, or an unseen intruder on the island. Then came the supernatural theories: ghost ships, sea creatures, curses whispered by fishermen, even the idea that the men were taken by something not entirely human. It sounds wild until you stand on those cliffs and feel the ocean shaking the earth beneath your feet. More than 120 years later, the Flannan Isles mystery remains one of the most chilling disappearances in history. No bodies, no clues, no answers. Just 3 men, a silent lighthouse, and an island that refuses to give up its secrets. They didn't walk away. They didn't swim away. They simply disappeared, swallowed whole by the edge of the world.
Shortly after midnight on May 14, 2008, 19-year-old college student Brandon Swanson was driving home after celebrating the end of spring semester. It was a quiet night in rural Minnesota. Long, empty roads, endless cornfields, nothing but darkness stretching for miles. At around 1:15 a.m., Brandon's car slipped off a gravel road and slid into a ditch. Not a crash, just stuck. He wasn't hurt, his engine still worked, his lights still worked. Everything seemed normal. So Brandon did what anyone would do. He called his parents. His father picked up. Brandon sounded calm, maybe a little frustrated. He explained where he thought he was, just outside the small town of Lind. His parents drove out to get him, headlights scanning the pitch-black countryside. But there was a problem. Brandon wasn't there. In fact, he wasn't anywhere near where he thought he was. They flashed their lights, he flashed his, yet neither could see the other. So Brandon decided to walk toward a nearby town, thinking he could reach a friend's house or meet his parents on the road. He kept his dad on the phone the whole time. For nearly 47 minutes they talked. They talked about school. They talked about friends. They talked about normal things, while Brandon walked through the darkness with only his phone lighting the ground. Then suddenly his voice changed. He said, "Oh shit!" A sharp noise, a stumble, a sense of panic, and then silence. The phone went dead instantly. His parents called back again and again. No answer. When morning came, police launched a massive search. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers, investigators sweeping field after field. They eventually found his car, miles away from where he said he was, miles from where anyone expected him to be. But they found no Brandon. Tracking dogs followed his scent to a riverbank, then into the river, then out the other side. He had crossed it, walked through it, kept going. But after that, nothing. No clothing, no phone, no footprints, no remains, no evidence of an animal attack, no signs of drowning. Brandon Swanson had walked straight into the night and vanished, as if the darkness swallowed him whole. Theories exploded. He fell into an unseen well or abandoned cistern. He collapsed somewhere hidden in tall grass. He ran into someone or something he didn't expect, or that final panicked "oh shit" was the moment he realized he'd stepped somewhere he couldn't escape. But 16 years later, one of the strangest clues remains this. He walked after crossing the river. He moved with purpose. He wasn't disoriented, he wasn't injured, and his phone never surfaced, never pinged again. It just ended. A 19-year-old boy, talking calmly to his father one second, gone the next. No body, no trace, no answers. Only the sound of those final words echoing through one of America's most haunting disappearances. Oh shit.
In the early 1900s, if you wanted to find the edge of the world, you didn't sail the oceans, you walked into the Amazon. And no one walked deeper, farther, or with more obsession than Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett. He was everything an explorer was supposed to be: fearless, disciplined, brilliant, and just a little bit mad.
He believed that hidden somewhere in the unmapped heart of Brazil lay a lost ancient city, a place he called simply Z. A civilization untouched by time, a city built of stone and gold. Proof that humanity's greatest wonders were not in the old world, but in the green heart of the new. For years, Fawcett searched. Rivers tried to drown him. Insects tried to eat him alive. Tribes watched him from the shadows. But he always came back. Until 1925, the year he didn't. Fawcett set out with only 2 companions, his 21-year-old son, Jack, and Jack's best friend, Raleigh Rimmel. No large crew, no heavy weapons, no army of porters, just 3 men walking into a jungle big enough to swallow countries. His last letter home said, "You need have no fear of any failure." But that confidence was the final thing the world ever received from him. After reaching a place called Dead Horse Camp, an ominous name for an optimistic expedition, Fawcett wrote that they were heading northeast, deeper into unexplored territory. Then, silence. Weeks passed. Months. Years. Nothing. Search parties went in after him, and some of them disappeared. One even returned insane. Another reported finding bones, but they belonged to no one in the group. Local tribes told stories. 3 outsiders seen walking into the forest, 3 outsiders never seen leaving. Some claimed Fawcett was killed for trespassing. Others said he chose to stay, becoming the leader of a secret tribe. A few believed he reached the mythical city and never wanted it found. Then came the strangest rumor. Fawcett discovered something so extraordinary that he destroyed all evidence and isolated himself from the world permanently. But there was one more mystery: his secret papers. Fawcett hid maps, notes, and coordinates, refusing to let anyone else know the exact route to Z. Some believe those lost documents hold the real answer to his fate. Over a century later, no trace of the expedition has ever been found. No bones, no equipment, no camp remains. Nothing but a trail of questions winding through a jungle that keeps its secrets as fiercely as it keeps its treasures. Percy Fawcett did not simply vanish. He walked willingly into a place where maps end, where compasses lie, where the trees grow so thick they blot out the sun. He believed he would find a lost city. Instead, he became one of the Amazon's most legendary ghosts. A father, a son, a friend, and an obsession that swallowed all 3. The Lost Expedition of Percy Fawcett, the men who chased a myth and became one.
February 9th, 2004. A cold, quiet Monday night in rural New Hampshire. A night so still it felt frozen in place until a single car smashed into a snowbank on a dark roadside curve. The driver was 21-year-old Maura Murray, a nursing student with good grades, a complicated life, and a secret she never fully shared with anyone. That night, Maura suddenly emailed her professors saying she was taking a week off due to a family emergency. There was no emergency. She packed clothes, school books, and personal items. She withdrew money from an ATM. She even emailed her boyfriend, "I love you more than ever." Then she drove north, alone, toward the White Mountains, a place she had no known reason to visit. Hours later, her Saturn crashed on a rural road in Haverhill. A passing bus driver stopped, offering help. Maura said she was fine, just shaken, and politely refused police assistance. He drove off, and when officers arrived minutes later, the car was empty. Maura Murray was gone. No footprints leading into the woods, no signs of a struggle, no blood, no belongings scattered around, just a locked car, a deployed airbag, and a vanished woman. The case should have been straightforward, but Maura's life wasn't simple, and the deeper investigators looked, the stranger it became. She had crashed her father's car days earlier. She'd recently looked up directions to stay at cabins in Vermont. She searched for how to report credit card fraud. She had alcohol in the car, some of it spilled on the seat. She was stressed, overwhelmed, and clearly running from something or toward something. But what? The theories multiplied like wildfire. Some believe she fled into the woods, disoriented, drunk, freezing, and succumbed to the elements. But no scent dogs, no thermal imaging, no search teams ever found a trace. Others say she voluntarily disappeared, creating a new life, running from pressure, from secrets, from something she couldn't face. But why leave her belongings, her ID, her future? Then came the darker theories. A hit-and-run cover-up, a predator on the remote road, a local who abducted her before police arrived, even the idea that she willingly got into a car with someone she trusted and paid the price. But what made Maura Murray legendary wasn't just the mystery, it was the internet. Within months, thousands of strangers became obsessed. Message boards turned into battlegrounds. People analyzed every photo, every timestamp, every rumor. Maps, timelines, phone records, even satellite images. Her disappearance became the first true crime case built by the public, long before TikTok detectives and Reddit sleuths existed. And yet, 20 years later, the world is no closer to the truth. No body, no confirmed sightings, no signs of foul play, nothing but digital noise and unanswered questions. Who was Maura Murray running from? Or was she running toward a place she thought would save her? One car, one dark road, one young woman swallowed by the night. The internet has dissected every second, and still, the most obsessive mystery of the digital age remains unsolved.
Deep in the barren, icy wilderness of northern Canada lies one of the most disturbing mysteries ever told. A disappearance so massive, so impossible, that it sounds like something torn from a nightmare. It's the story of Anjikuni, a small Inuit fishing village on the remote shores of Lake Anjikuni in Nunavut. A place so isolated that in winter even sound seemed to freeze in the air. On a bitterly cold day in November 1930, a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle trudged through the snow toward the village. He was exhausted, freezing, and hoping to warm himself by the fires of the Inuit families he'd known for years. But when he arrived, something was wrong. The village was silent. Not quiet, but dead silent. He entered the first igloo. No one inside. Just a pot of food, still warm, as if someone had stepped away only seconds before. He checked another hut. Empty. Then another, and another. Clothing was left behind. Weapons, boats on the shore, supplies, tools, food, everything exactly where it should be. But there were no people. An entire village of men, women, children, and elders. Gone. LaBelle panicked and ran to the nearest telegraph station, breathlessly reporting that every single resident, dozens of people, had vanished without warning. When the Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrived, the mystery only deepened. They found sled dogs tied up outside the village, dead, starved, frozen. Why would the villagers leave their most valuable companions behind? Inside a communal hut, they found something even stranger, a rifle rack, emptied of its weapons. In Inuit culture, leaving weapons behind is unthinkable, especially in winter. Then came the most disturbing detail of all. On the edge of the village cemetery, authorities discovered a grave that had been opened, not dug up by animals, but disturbed in a way no one could explain. The body inside was gone. Was someone digging into the grave or digging someone out? Rumors began spinning wildly. Some spoke of a blinding blue light seen in the sky weeks earlier, flickering above the lake before shooting straight upward. Others whispered about an unseen force in the wilderness, a curse, a spirit, a visitor. The RCMP later tried to downplay the incident, calling it exaggerated, misreported, or folklore. But the official denials never matched the depth of the fear locals felt, or the consistency of the old accounts. Because the truth remains. A whole community doesn't just walk away from warm fires, full plates, sleeping children, and beloved sled dogs. Not in the Arctic, not in winter, not without a trace. Whether it was a mass departure gone wrong, a series of tragic circumstances, or something far stranger than anything we understand, the people of Anjikuni were never seen again. No footprints leading away, no signs of struggle, no trail, nothing but a frozen silence where a village once lived. The vanishing village of Anjikuni isn't just a disappearance, it's a reminder that in the farthest corners of the earth, there are still mysteries powerful enough to swallow entire worlds and leave behind only questions.
May 3rd, 2007. A warm evening in Praia de Luz, Portugal, a peaceful seaside resort where families relaxed, children played, and danger felt like something that only happened far away. Inside apartment 5A, 3-year-old Madeleine McCann was sleeping beside her younger twin siblings, while her parents, Kate and Jerry, dined at a restaurant just steps away. They checked on the kids every 20 to 30 minutes. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be routine. But around 10 p.m., everything shattered. Kate McCann walked into the apartment, and Madeleine's bed was empty. At first, she thought she was mistaken. Maybe the child was hiding. Maybe she'd wandered into another room. But within seconds, a scream tore through the building. A scream the entire world would soon hear. Madeleine's gone. Police arrived, but every minute that passed felt like sand slipping through fingers. Windows were open, curtains were fluttering, the bedroom shutters showed signs of being tampered with, and the most chilling detail, a witness reported seeing a man carrying a small child in pajamas walking quickly toward the dark streets outside the resort. The global firestorm ignited instantly. Madeleine's bright blue eyes and iconic coloboma, the distinctive mark in her right eye, appeared on every TV screen in Europe, every newspaper, every airport, every border station. But the investigation became chaos. Portuguese police suspected an abduction. Then they turned suspicion toward the parents. British media exploded with theories, accusations, and conspiracies. Leads poured in from nearly every continent, most of them dead ends. Years passed. Sightings in Morocco, a child seen at a gas station in Belgium, a girl matching Madeleine's description in India, a suspicious man seen living out of a van in Portugal. Nothing ever confirmed. Then came the darkest twist. A convicted predator living near the resort at the time, a man who knew the area, the apartments, the routines, but even that lead stalled in the fog of old evidence and conflicting reports. DNA tests, cadaver dogs, interrogations, millions of pounds spent, hundreds of detectives involved, and still no trace of Madeleine. Her disappearance became more than a case. It became a symbol, a reminder of every parent's deepest fear,
and the internet's unstoppable obsession. People built entire websites dedicated to decoding the timeline. Forum detectives argued over clues for years. Documentaries, police statements, leaked files, nothing brought her home. But the haunting part is this: Madeleine McCann could still be alive. If she was taken by someone who wanted a child, not to harm, but to raise, she would now be a young adult, possibly never knowing who she truly is, or that millions of people have been searching for her since the night she disappeared. No body, no confirmed suspect, no definitive evidence. Just a child frozen in time, 3 years old, forever. The world has not forgotten her. It refuses to. Because some mysteries fade, but some burn so deeply into the human heart that they become part of our collective memory. Madeleine McCann disappeared from a quiet holiday apartment in Portugal, and for nearly 20 decades, the world has been holding its breath, waiting for an answer. A girl vanished, and the planet never stopped looking.
In 1845, 2 British ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, sailed out of England with one mission: to conquer the last uncharted section of the Northwest Passage. At their helm was Sir John Franklin, a seasoned explorer leading 129 men into the Arctic, a frozen maze of shifting ice, endless night, and deadly silence. The ships were the pride of the British Navy: state-of-the-art steam engines, reinforced hulls, 3 years' worth of supplies, even libraries, heating systems, and fine china. It was supposed to be the expedition that finally tamed the Arctic. Instead, it became one of the greatest tragedies in exploration history. After a few early sightings by passing whalers, the Franklin expedition vanished. No letters, no signals, no returning ships. Only silence beneath the polar sky. Years passed with no sign of the crew. Britain panicked. Search parties were launched, dozens of them, but the Arctic swallowed everything. Then small clues began drifting in like ghosts. An abandoned camp, silver spoons engraved with officers' initials, a note stuffed in a cairn telling a horrifying story. The Erebus and Terror had become trapped in pack ice for over a year and a half. Franklin had died. Supplies were dwindling, and the remaining crew, weak, starving, desperate, had abandoned the ships, attempting to walk hundreds of miles across hellish, frozen wasteland. They never made it. Inuit hunters later told of pale, starving men wandering the ice, dragging sledges filled with bizarre cargo, books, soap, even curtain rods, while leaving behind the things they truly needed to survive. Some Inuit accounts spoke of something darker: men driven mad by hunger, men who resorted to the unthinkable. And then came the bodies. Frozen skeletons found on King William Island, still wearing Victorian naval uniforms, faces down in the snow, bones showing unmistakable signs of cannibalism, the final desperate act of men dying in a place that offered no mercy. For more than 150 years, the Erebus and Terror themselves remained missing. Rumors swept the Arctic, the ships drifting as ghost vessels, trapped in the ice forever. Then, in 2014 and 2016, sonar teams made stunning discoveries. First, the Erebus, sitting eerily upright in shallow water, as if waiting patiently. Then the Terror, astonishingly intact,
plates still stacked, doors still closed, beds made, tools lying exactly where the men left them before death swallowed their world. The ships were time capsules, but they answered almost nothing. How did the crew die? Why did the most prepared expedition in history collapse so catastrophically? Did they succumb to lead poisoning from canned food? Did scurvy or disease ravage them? Or did the Arctic simply do what it always does, crush anything that dares underestimate it? What remains is a story of ambition meeting brutality. Men who sailed into a world of ice, believing they could outthink, outlast, and outfight nature, only to discover that in the Arctic, the cold doesn't just freeze, it consumes. The Franklin expedition didn't just disappear. It froze in place, buried under layers of time, snow, and silence. 2 mighty ships lost beneath the ice, and 129 men who walked into the white void and never walked out.
May 25th, 1979. A normal morning in New York City. Parents heading to work, traffic humming, kids grabbing backpacks as they rushed out the door. 6-year-old Eitan Patz, bright smile, bowl-cut hair, blue backpack, was excited. For the very first time, he begged to walk the 2 blocks to his school bus stop alone. His mother hesitated, but it was Manhattan, a busy, familiar neighborhood, and the route was short. She finally agreed. Eitan put on his little cap, slung his bag over his shoulder, walked out the front door, and vanished somewhere between his home and the corner. No screams, no witnesses, no clues. In less than 2 minutes, a child had disappeared into thin air in the middle of daytime Manhattan. Panic exploded instantly. Police flooded Soho. Dogs searched alleys. Neighbors opened storage rooms, basements, rooftops. But the most terrifying thing in this case was the nothingness. There was no blood, no evidence, not a single object dropped. Eitan simply slipped out of the world. His devastated parents pushed the investigation with everything they had, and something remarkable happened. Eitan Patz became one of the first missing children in American history to have his face printed on milk cartons. His photograph, wide eyes, soft smile, stared out from breakfast tables across the country. His disappearance awakened a national fear that had always existed but had never been spoken aloud. If it could happen to Eitan, it could happen to anyone. Years passed, then decades. Leads came and collapsed. Strangers confessed falsely. A drifter in Pennsylvania claimed involvement, but none of it stuck. The case felt cursed, until a chilling name emerged: Pedro Hernandez. In 2012, more than 33 years after Eitan's disappearance, Hernandez confessed. He said he lured Eitan into a convenience store basement, strangled him, and threw his body into a trash bag. It sounded like the truth, but there was no physical evidence, no remains, nothing to confirm what really happened. Yet his confession was so detailed, so disturbing, that a jury finally found him guilty in 2017. For Eitan's parents, it wasn't closure, but it was the closest thing to an answer they would ever get. But Eitan's story didn't just end in a courtroom. His disappearance changed America. It reshaped how missing children are searched for. It led to new laws, national missing children systems, awareness campaigns, and the creation of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. May 25th, the day he disappeared, became National Missing Children's Day, because one little boy
walked out the door to catch a school bus, and the entire country realized how fragile a child's safety truly is. Aton Patz never came home, but his story forced America to look directly into the darkness and promise never to ignore a missing child again.
New York City, December 12, 1910. The streets glittered with falling snow. The stores along Fifth Avenue buzzed with Christmas shoppers, and the wealthy elite of Manhattan moved through the city like characters in their own polished world. Among them was 25-year-old Dorothy Arnold, a beautiful socialite from one of America's richest families, daughter of a perfume magnate, educated, witty, and dreaming of becoming a writer. That morning, Dorothy told her mother she was going out to buy a dress for an upcoming party. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. She left the family mansion wearing a fashionable blue suit, carrying a small purse, and walked straight into one of the greatest mysteries in New York history. She stopped at a candy shop. She chatted with a friend she bumped into on the street. She bought a book at a bookstore on 27th Street. Witnesses later said she looked cheerful, calm, nothing remotely out of place. And then she vanished. A young heiress in broad daylight on one of the busiest streets on Earth, gone without a single person seeing or hearing anything. When Dorothy didn't return home that evening, the Arnolds panicked. But instead of calling the police, they made a devastating mistake. They feared scandal more than danger. The family waited and waited. For 6 weeks, they conducted a private investigation, terrified the newspapers would learn that an upper-class woman had gone missing. By the time the case finally reached the authorities, the trail was ice cold. Speculation erupted like wildfire. Some believed Dorothy had slipped away to pursue her writing career under a new identity. Others whispered that she'd been secretly pregnant and tragically died during a botched procedure. Some claimed she might have been kidnapped for ransom, though no ransom ever came. The strangest lead came from a man named George Griscom, a wealthy playboy Dorothy had been romantically involved with. Her parents despised him. When investigators questioned him, he claimed he had no idea where she was, but his story was riddled with contradictions. Then came the confessions. Men from all over America claimed they knew what happened to Dorothy Arnold, that she'd been attacked in Central Park, that she'd been abducted by a criminal gang, that she'd been buried in the basement of a hospital. Every confession fell apart. Her father grew increasingly convinced she was dead, declaring, "I am positive she was murdered." But he never offered evidence, only despair. Years turned into decades. Detectives followed hundreds of leads, searched institutions, questioned suspects, dug up basements, chased rumors from New York to California. Nothing. No body, no belongings, not a single confirmed clue. Dorothy Arnold simply walked out into a winter afternoon and evaporated from the world. Her disappearance became a symbol of how, even in a city of millions, a person, even a wealthy, protected heiress, can step around a corner and never be seen again. A century later, the case remains unsolved. No remains have ever been found. No final clue has ever surfaced. Dorothy Arnold left her home to buy a dress and instead became one of America's most haunting, elegant mysteries, a woman swallowed by Manhattan long before the city learned how to look for the missing.
The year is 1809. Europe is burning in the Napoleonic Wars. Spies in every tavern, armies moving in silence, and diplomacy carried out like a dangerous game of chess. British diplomat Benjamin Bathurst knew this world all too well. He had spent months negotiating in Austria, but the political climate had grown so deadly that he was forced to flee.
Every shadow looked suspicious. Every stranger felt like an enemy. So on a cold November evening, Bathurst and his aide stopped in the small German town of Perelberg, planning only a brief rest before hurrying toward safety. After a quiet dinner at an inn, Bathurst stepped outside to check on their carriage, a simple, ordinary act he had done countless times. He walked behind the horses, turned the corner, and vanished. Not a scream, not a struggle, not a footprint in the mud. 1 second he existed. The next, the world simply removed him. Panic erupted immediately. His aide searched the street, the inn, the stables. Nothing. Locals were questioned. No one saw him leave. No one saw him abducted. No one heard anything. It was as if he had been erased mid-step. Rumors ignited almost instantly. Some believed Bathurst had been assassinated by Napoleon's agents, a quick, silent removal of a man who knew too much. After all, spies vanished all the time during wartime Europe. Others claimed he had been robbed and murdered by bandits who disposed of the body with expert precision. Though there were no signs of a struggle, no missing valuables, and no suspicious activity reported that night. Then came the theories that turned the story from political intrigue into something bizarre. Witnesses claimed a strange, nervous man matching Bathurst's description had been seen days later, wandering through fields in ragged clothes, muttering to himself. But the figure vanished just as quickly as he appeared. Decades later, a human skull was found behind a house near Perelberg. Some said it might belong to Bathurst. Others insisted it was impossible to prove. Modern tests offered no answers. And then the strangest twist of all. Some conspiracy theorists claim that Benjamin Bathurst didn't vanish because of spies, but because of something unexplainable. A slip between dimensions, a time distortion, sudden disappearance without physical cause, like he stepped into a place the human mind can't comprehend. Of course, there's no evidence of any of that, but there's also no evidence of anything. Benjamin Bathurst walked a few steps behind a carriage in a quiet German town, and reality swallowed him whole. No body, no belongings, no final trace. Just an empty patch of dirt where a man should have been, and one of history's most chilling disappearances, frozen forever in the fog of 1809. June 7, 1992. Springfield, Missouri, a quiet, friendly town where nothing truly horrific was supposed to happen. Graduation weekend had just ended, and two best friends, Suzanne Susie Streeter, age 19, and Stacy McCall, also 18, were celebrating the start of their futures. They visited friends, went to parties, laughed, took pictures, and finally decided to spend the night at Susie's house. Inside the small home on East Delmar Street, Susie's mother, Cheryl Levitt, a 47-year-old hairdresser, was already asleep. The next morning, something felt wrong. Friends arriving at the house found the front door unlocked. All three women's cars were parked outside. Their purses, money, IDs, and cigarettes all still inside. The house was spotless, normal, except that the women were gone. No sign of a struggle, no broken glass, no overturned furniture, just a shattered porch light strangely swept up by someone, almost as if the person who took them didn't want evidence lying around. Inside, The family dog was frantic. The beds appeared slept in. And on the answering machine, a creepy, unexplained message had been recorded but accidentally erased before police could analyze it. From that moment, the case spiraled into one of the most haunting mysteries in American history. Detectives launched a massive search. Over 20,000 tips poured in. Helicopters, cadaver dogs, psychics, dive teams. Nothing. Then came the eerie leads. A local man with a history of violence claimed he knew where the bodies were buried, but his location produced no evidence. Another suspect, a convicted murderer named Robert Craig Cox, hinted that he knew the truth but refused to speak until after his mother died. He later recanted, then hinted again. A sickening cycle of cryptic claims and dead ends. Over the years, rumors multiplied. A break-in gone wrong, a kidnapping by someone the women knew, a conspiracy involving multiple attackers, a burial site beneath a hospital's parking garage. That lead was so persistent that ground-penetrating radar was eventually used, revealing strange anomalies under the concrete. But authorities refused to dig. 3 women, 1 house, everything left behind, except them. No ransom, no confirmed suspect, no bodies. The Springfield 3 became a legend, a chilling reminder that a person can be surrounded by neighbors, cars, porch lights and phone calls, and still vanish without a trace. Decades later, the case remains open. Families still wait. Detectives still hope for a tip that finally breaks the silence. But as of today, Susie Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt are simply gone. 3 lives swallowed in the dead of night. No struggle, no witnesses, just an unlocked door and the worst mystery Springfield has ever known.
Long before Hollywood existed, before movie theaters, projectors, or even the idea of motion pictures, there was one man who figured it all out first. His name was Louis Le Prince, a quiet genius, an inventor, and the man many consider the true father of film. He wasn't famous, he wasn't wealthy, but he was on the brink of changing the world forever. In 1888, years before Thomas Edison or the Lumiere brothers unveiled their cameras, Le Prince built a device that did something magical. It captured moving images on film. His short clip, Round Hay Garden Scene, filmed in a small English garden, is now considered the earliest surviving motion picture in history. Le Prince was ready to unveil his invention to the world. He believed it would make him a legend, revolutionize entertainment, and rewrite the future. But fate had other plans. On September 16, 1890, Le Prince boarded a train in Dijon, France. He was traveling to Paris before heading to America for his big public demonstration, the one that would finally prove he, not Edison, created the first motion picture camera. Le Prince boarded the train. Passengers saw him take his seat. The train arrived in Paris, and Louis Le Prince was gone. No one saw him get off. No luggage, no body, nothing left behind. He had vanished between 2 train stations, as if reality had simply deleted him. Investigators searched the tracks, rivers, tunnels, and villages in between. They questioned passengers, station workers, and his family. Not a single clue surfaced. It was one of the most baffling disappearances in France's history. Then came the theories. Some believed he was murdered, perhaps thrown from the train because his invention threatened powerful men who wanted control of the new motion picture industry. Others whispered he was assassinated by agents connected to Thomas Edison, who was locked in heated patent battles over film technology. LaPrince's disappearance cleared the path for Edison to claim much of the fame. Another theory said LaPrince may have taken his own life, but there was no evidence of despair, no note, no motive, and his lifelong dream was just days away from being realized. Even stranger, some speculate he staged his own disappearance, wanting to live in anonymity after years of pressure and financial stress. Yet the strongest theory involves something more mundane, but still chilling, that he was the victim of a robbery or violent attack, and whoever did it hid the body so thoroughly it was never found. For a century, his family fought to restore his legacy, arguing that LaPrince, not Edison, invented the first true movie camera. And modern historians largely agree. But the man himself, he is still missing. In 1890, Louis LaPrince stepped into a train car carrying the future of cinema in his hands. By the time the train stopped, the future arrived, but the man who created it had disappeared forever. No body, no crime scene, no answers. Just an empty seat on a train and the lost genius who may have been the real father of film.
February 24th, 1978. 5 young men from Yuba City, California, all close friends, all part of a special needs basketball team, climb into a turquoise Mercury Montego and head to a college game. They laugh, they snack, they celebrate their recent win. By all accounts, it was supposed to be a simple, joyful night out. But somewhere after midnight, the road home took them into darkness. The men, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Ted Weyer, Jack Hewitt, and Gary Mathias, ended up driving 70 miles in the opposite direction, deep into the freezing, snow-covered mountains of the Plumas National Forest. The question that haunts investigators to this day is simple: why? Their car was found abandoned on a remote logging road, no damage, plenty of gas, keys missing, doors unlocked. It was stuck in some snow, but not enough to trap it. Any of the men could have freed it easily, yet they didn't. Instead, they walked into the wilderness. Days passed, then months. Search teams combed the forests. Planes flew overhead. Nothing. Winter held its secrets tightly until the snow melted. In June, rangers made a grim discovery. A Forest Service trailer 19 miles from the abandoned car. Inside, lying on a bed under a pile of blankets, was the skeletal body of Ted Weyer. He had survived for up to 13 weeks. There was food in the trailer, enough to keep him alive, but it had barely been touched. Next to him lay his shoes, neatly placed, and a notebook filled with strange, incomplete entries. Then nearby in the woods, they found the remains of Madruga and Sterling lying on opposite sides of the road, as if they collapsed in the dark while trying to get help. Further up a steep hillside, partially consumed by wildlife, were the bones of Hewitt. Still missing, Gary Mathias. The only one who had a history of unpredictable behavior, the only one whose body was never found. And without him, the theories exploded. Some believe the group trusted Mathias too much and followed him into the mountains during a mental health episode. Others say they were chased, perhaps by someone who frightened them badly enough to flee into the snow without jackets, food, or logic. One witness even claimed she saw them at a mountain store with 2 mysterious men on the same night they disappeared. But the most chilling theory echoes the Dyatlov Pass, that the men panicked after hearing or seeing something in the wilderness, something that terrified them enough to abandon their car, their supplies, and their instincts. Authorities offered no satisfying explanation.
Why did 5 men walk nearly 20 miles uphill in bone-freezing temperatures? Why did Weir starve in a trailer stocked with food? Why had someone burned candles inside the trailer but not used the heater? And why, above all, was Gary Matthias never found? The forest still keeps its secrets. No footprints remain. No answers. Only the echoes of 5 friends who drove into the night and vanished into the snow like the American Dyatlov Pass.
March 26, 1967. It was Easter Sunday in the Cameron Highlands of Malaysia, a quiet mountain paradise of mist, jungle-covered hills, and old colonial cottages hidden among towering trees. American businessman Jim Thompson, known across Asia as the Silk King of Thailand, stepped out of his friend's bungalow after lunch, took a casual walk down a garden path, and was never seen again. Jim Thompson wasn't just anyone. He was a former OSS intelligence officer, America's World War II spy agency, and the man who single-handedly revived Thailand's silk industry, transforming it into a global luxury empire. He was wealthy, influential, connected, and yet within minutes, he disappeared in broad daylight. The Cameron Highlands search broke records. Hundreds of police officers, Orang Asli trackers, soldiers, volunteers, helicopters, even psychics, all combed through miles of jungle. But the rainforest swallowed everything. No clothing, no bones, no blood, not even a shoe print. It was as if the jungle opened, took him in, and closed behind him. And that's when the theories began. Theory 1. The jungle took him. Some believe he wandered off the path, slipped, and fell into a ravine or was swept away by a stream. But no remains after decades? The rainforest is brutal, but not that perfect. Theory 2. He was kidnapped or murdered. Thompson was a wealthy foreigner in a politically volatile region. Some say bandits took him. Others whisper about enemies in the silk industry or business rivals with motives of their own. Theory 3. Intelligence agents silenced him. Before he was the Silk King, he was a spy. He knew secrets from the Cold War era, from Southeast Asia's political shakeups, and from delicate U.S.-Thai relations. Some believe he was eliminated quietly, efficiently, by operatives who didn't want something he knew to become public. But the strangest theory came from the people who knew the jungle best. Theory 5. The local supernatural belief. Some Orang Asli tribesmen whispered that Thompson crossed into a forbidden area where spirits protect the forest. According to them, outsiders who disturb these sacred places sometimes never come back. Whether myth or metaphor, it captured the eerie essence of the case. Jim Thompson didn't just get lost, he was taken. Despite international attention, heavy media coverage, and innumerable investigations, the truth remains buried beneath the canopy. No ransom, no confirmed sightings, no remains, no closure. Just a man who walked down a jungle path and vanished as if the earth itself absorbed him. Jim Thompson, war spy, silk tycoon, global icon, disappeared into the Malaysian highlands and left behind one of Southeast Asia's most enduring, most baffling mysteries. A king of silk, lost to the forest forever.
August 23, 1912. The Dunbar family of Louisiana, Percy, Leslie, and their 4-year-old son Bobby, were enjoying a summer trip to Swayze Lake, a swampy, murky place where cypress trees leaned over the water like silent sentinels. In the middle of the afternoon, little Bobby wandered away from camp. Minutes passed, then an hour. Then the sun began to drop behind the trees. The Dunbars searched frantically. Neighbors arrived to help. Bloodhounds were brought in. The lake was dragged. The swamp was torn apart. But there was no Bobby. It was every parent's nightmare. A child swallowed by the wild. 8 months later, hundreds of miles away in Mississippi, authorities found a little boy traveling with a wandering handyman named William Cantwell Walters. The boy resembled Bobby. Same age, same hair, same build. The Dunbars rushed to see him. And here's where the story reaches a chilling turning point. When Mrs. Dunbar first looked at the child, she hesitated. She wasn't sure. 8 months is a long time. A mother's memory can blur. Fear can scramble everything. But by the next day, she was suddenly convinced, this is my Bobby. Newspapers exploded with celebration. Lost Bobby Dunbar found alive! The boy was dressed in new clothes, paraded through the streets, welcomed home like a miracle returned from the dead. But one woman refused to stay silent. Julia Anderson, a poor single mother from North Carolina, insisted that the boy was hers, her son Bruce, who had been temporarily left in the care of Walters. She said Walters wasn't a kidnapper. He was a family friend, and the child was not Bobby. He was Bruce Anderson. She begged the court to let her see the boy. When he was brought in front of her, the child didn't run to her. He didn't recognize her. Or maybe he did, but after months of fear and moving from place to place, he didn't react the way the court expected. Reporters mocked her. The court ruled against her. Walters was convicted of kidnapping. Julia lost the case, and her son. The Dunbars took the boy home and raised him as Bobby Dunbar for the rest of his life. Case closed. Happy ending. Or so it seemed. Decades later, after Bobby grew up and had children of his own, a strange uneasiness followed the family. Stories didn't line up. Physical traits didn't match. Whispers of doubt lingered. Finally, in the early 2000s, Bobby Dunbar's granddaughter took a DNA test. The result shattered 90 years of truth. The man raised as Bobby Dunbar, the man who lived an entire lifetime under that name, was not a Dunbar. He was Bruce Anderson, Julia Anderson's son. Which means the real Bobby Dunbar, the little boy who vanished at Swayze Lake, was never found. Not then, not ever. The happy ending the world celebrated in 1912 was a heartbreaking mistake, a stolen identity, a family unknowingly raising someone else's child. A mother, Julia Anderson, dismissed because she was poor and ultimately proven right by science almost a century later. The true Bobby Dunbar is still missing. His fate unknown. His disappearance unresolved. In the end, the case of Bobby Dunbar wasn't just a mystery. It was a tragedy with two victims, a boy who vanished and another boy who lost his real identity forever. A century later, the truth finally surfaced. But the little boy from Swayze Lake never did. June 10th, 1912. The small, quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, woke up to a nightmare so gruesome that even today, over a century later, the shadows of that house still feel alive. Inside the Moore family home, 8 people were found brutally murdered with an axe: Josiah and Sarah Moore, their 4 children, and 2 young friends who had stayed the night. Every room held a scene that seemed impossible to comprehend. Windows covered, mirrors draped, food laid out on the table, untouched. Every single victim struck with such force that the killer likely left drenched in shadows and silence. But here's the part that isn't talked about nearly enough. Some believe there may have been survivors in the house, people who woke up, saw something, or encountered the killer and then vanished from history. This is the vanished witness theory, and it changes everything. It begins with a detail buried in early reports. Several neighbors claimed they heard thumps, whispers, and faint sobbing from the Moore home early that morning, hours after experts believe the killer should have already left, meaning someone might still have been alive inside. There were also stories, mentioned once and then quietly dropped, of a mysterious boy wandering the dawn streets of Villisca barefoot and shaking, a child no one could identify who disappeared before police could question him. Then there's the claim by an elderly Villisca resident decades later that her grandmother once saw a terrified girl around 10 or 11 years old running behind the Moore house that morning in pajamas, her hair wild, as if she had escaped something unspeakable. Police dismissed these stories as hysteria. Reporters ignored them. The timeline was locked in: 8 victims, all dead overnight, no survivors. But the deeper investigators dug into the crime scene details, the more the official story began to crack. The state of the house told a different story. The killer cooked food after the murders. Someone moved through multiple rooms. Several lamps were adjusted, not shattered. A chair near one of the beds was moved between the time of death and the time police arrived, almost as if someone else, someone alive, was walking through the house after the murders, trying to hide, trying to escape, trying to survive. Witnesses outside reported seeing a tall man in dark clothing leaving the home at sunrise, long after the supposed time the killer had already fled. But what if that figure wasn't the killer? What if it was a surviving witness, one of the children or the girls who slept over, slipping away in shock, unable to speak, forgotten by history? Another strange detail: the official body count included 8 victims, but police logs in the first chaotic hours mentioned a possible night child whose identity was never confirmed. The reference vanished from later reports, wiped away like a mistake, or erased like an inconvenience. Then comes the most haunting part of the theory. Several nearby towns reported unknown children appearing in the days after the murders, dazed, confused, unable or unwilling to explain where they came from. Some were taken in by families. Some were placed in orphanages. None were traced back to Villisca. If even one of those children came from the Moore house that night, the entire narrative collapses. It would mean that at least one person, maybe more, witnessed the killer, escaped the carnage, and then disappeared into America's early 1900s orphan system without a voice, no names, no records, no justice. Today, the Villisca Axe Murder House is famous for ghost stories. People talk about shadows, whispers, unexplained footsteps. But maybe, just maybe, some of those footsteps belonged to a witness who really lived, a child who ran from a nightmare and was never seen again.
In the dying days of the Wild West,
when gun smoke still lingered over dusty streets and the frontier was swallowing its last sunsets, there was one woman who stood out in a world ruled by outlaws. Her name was Etta Place, the mysterious companion of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and a woman whose beauty, intelligence, and dead calm courage made even the most hardened criminals step aside. But while the world remembers the men, it is Etta who became the true ghost of legend, because one day she simply vanished. We know shockingly little about her. No confirmed birthplace, no family records, not even her real name. Etta Place was a shadow, a name she chose, not one she was born with. What we do know begins in 1900, when she appeared suddenly in the outlaw world, attached to Ari Longabaugh, better known as the Sundance Kid. She wasn't just his girlfriend, she was his equal. Witnesses described her as calm, refined, and deadly accurate with a rifle. She rode hard, shot straight, and kept secrets like a vault. Even the Pinkerton detectives, the most elite manhunters in America, admitted they feared her. When the law closed in on the Wild Bunch, Sundance and Butch fled to South America, and Etta went with them. On ship manifests, she used her famous alias and spoke Spanish fluently, like she had lived another life before crime. In Argentina, the trio bought land and tried to go straight, raising cattle, hosting dinners, blending into local society. But Etta struggled with what the men embraced, a life on the run. She missed America, she missed stability, and more importantly, she hated violence. After Butch and Sundance got into a shootout with local troops, the three realized their peaceful life was over. The Pinkertons were closing in again. And this is where Etta's trail goes cold. In 1906, she traveled with the Sundance Kid back to the United States. But after that journey, she disappears from history. Some say she returned to New York, trying to reclaim a past erased by her outlaw years. Some believe she slipped into Denver under a different name and lived quietly as a school teacher. Others insist she died in a hospital in 1922 under yet another alias, a tragic, anonymous end for a woman who once stared down lawmen. But there are far stranger theories. One claims Etta headed for San Francisco, joined a wealthy family, and reinvented herself entirely, burying the past so deeply that no one ever connected her to the Wild Bunch again. Another says she reunited with Butch Cassidy after reports of his survival in Bolivia, and lived out her life in secret with him well into old age. And the most haunting theory of all, that she was never a criminal at heart, just a runaway girl who fell in love with the wrong man, followed him too far into the shadows, and spent the rest of her life trying to escape the legend she helped create. Etta Place walked into history with two of America's most famous outlaws, but she walked out of it completely alone and without a trace. No grave, no confirmed death, no final chapter. Just a name carved into Western myth, and a silence so perfect, even the Pinkertons couldn't break it. Etta Place, the outlaw woman who vanished more completely than anyone she ever rode with. On October 3rd, 1955, the MV Joyita, a wooden trading vessel with a long history of problems, left Samoa carrying 25 people, crew, passengers, a doctor, and cargo ranging from medical supplies to food and empty oil drums. The journey should have taken only 48 hours, but the Joyita never arrived. For weeks, the Pacific swallowed their trail. No distress calls, no debris, no signals, just silence. And then, something stranger than anyone expected. 5 weeks later, the Joyita was found drifting hundreds of miles off course,
a battered, sun-bleached ghost ship. But the real horror wasn't the ship. It was what or who was missing. All 25 people on board were gone. Not a single body, not a single clue of where they went. Just the ship itself, floating like a coffin with the lid ripped off. When investigators boarded the Joyita, the scene looked like the aftermath of something sudden, chaotic, and terrifying. First, the engine wasn't running. Not broken, not destroyed, just turned off. Then came the chilling detail. The ship was listing heavily, tilted on its side because part of the hull had flooded. But it wasn't sinking. Joyita was built with a cork-lined hull. It was unsinkable. Everyone on board would have known that. So why abandon a ship that could not go under? Inside, investigators found the doctor's medical bag open on a table. Scalpels scattered, bandages unrolled, as if he'd been treating someone during a violent emergency. Blood-stained rags were discovered nearby, but there was no wounded person and no sign of a struggle. Disturbingly, radios were found ripped apart, wires carefully removed, not smashed in panic, disabled deliberately. Food was set out in the galley, half-eaten, like people had left mid-meal. Cargo was missing, especially the valuable medical supplies. And the lifeboats? Gone. It looked like a mass evacuation. But why? The official explanation claimed the crew panicked due to flooding and abandoned ship. But that makes no sense, because the Joyita couldn't sink even with the hull full of water. So why abandon a ship that could not go under? Other theories quickly took over. Theory 1. Mutiny. Some believe Captain Thomas Dusty Miller got into a deadly fight with crew members, leading to violence, chaos, and a forced abandonment. But no bodies, no weapons, no proof. Theory 2. Piracy. The region had a history of modern pirates. Maybe they boarded, robbed the ship, and kidnapped everyone. But the pirates would have sunk or stolen the Joyita. They left it drifting instead. Theory 3. A second vessel. Broken clocks on board had stopped at 10:25 p.m., suggesting the Joyita collided with another ship. Perhaps the crew was rescued or taken by a passing vessel. But why take everyone, including women and children? Theory 4. Government or military cover-up. Some point to the missing medical cargo. They believe the Joyita stumbled upon a covert military operation, forcing the authorities to silence the witnesses. But again, no evidence, just whispers. Theory 5. Something happened at night that terrified them. A distressing possibility that the wounded person, the disabled radios, and the rushed evacuation were all part of a single, horrifying moment. Something the crew believed would kill them all unless they fled immediately. But whatever they ran from never followed, because the Joyita drifted alone for 5 weeks, perfectly afloat, waiting for help that would never come. Not one of the 25 souls was ever found. Not one lifeboat, not a scrap of clothing, nothing. The sea kept its secret. The MV Joyita may not be as famous as the Mary Celeste, but its mystery is even darker. Because this wasn't the 1800s. This was the 1950s. Modern radios, modern records, modern search teams, and still 25 people vanished into the Pacific.
leaving behind only an empty, listing vessel and the cold feeling that whatever happened out there was fast, terrifying, and final. Another ghost ship, another crew swallowed whole, another mystery the ocean refuses to return.
She was called a literary miracle, a child unlike any other, a girl who didn't just write stories, she lived inside them. Barbara Newhall Follett was only 12 years old when she became a published author, celebrated as a genius who seemed destined for greatness. Her debut novel, The House Without Windows, stunned critics. Newspapers declared her the future of American literature. But behind that brilliance was a fragile world built on imagination and a reality that was quietly falling apart. Barbara grew up in a home full of books, music, and creativity until the day her father, the writer Wilson Follett, abruptly abandoned the family. His disappearance shattered her sense of safety and destroyed the artistic world she thought would last forever. At 13, her home caught fire and the manuscript of her second novel vanished in the flames. She rebuilt it from memory because her mind was that extraordinary. But something inside her had already cracked. The more she grew, the more she drifted away from society, preferring forests, mountains, and wild places where she felt truly alive. She wrote in her diary, "I want to live in the world of spirits and stars. This one feels too small." She married a man named Nickerson Rogers, a shy, outdoorsy traveler who promised a life of adventure. But as the years passed, the spark between them dimmed. Barbara felt trapped again, this time not by family, but by a marriage that no longer fed her soul. Her letters grew darker. Her writing became more desperate. And then came the final blow. She discovered that Nick was drifting away from her emotionally, maybe even unfaithful. Her internal world, already fragile, collapsed again. On December 7, 1939, at the age of 25, Barbara walked out of her apartment in Brookline, Massachusetts with $30 in her pocket, wearing a blue coat, and carrying nothing else. No notebook, no suitcase, no plan. Just silence. She told her husband she was going for a walk. He never saw her again. Days passed. Weeks passed. Months passed. No trace. No body. No answers. What makes this case even stranger is Roger's behavior in the aftermath. He didn't report her missing for 2 whole weeks. And even then, he filed the report quietly, with no urgency. Her mother begged him for information, wrote letters, pleaded with police. But the case fizzled out. There were no newspapers, no search parties, no public outcry. It was as though Barbara had been erased. Even today, the most chilling detail is this. Police records for her disappearance simply vanished. Lost, destroyed, or buried, no one knows. As for the theories? Theory 1, she took her own life. Some believe she walked into the woods and ended her suffering. But no body was ever found, and nearby forests were thoroughly explored. Theory 2, she started a new life. Friends claimed she once spoke of escaping society entirely. Maybe she slipped into anonymity, changing her name, working odd jobs, drifting like one of her own characters. Theory 3, her husband knew more than he said. The delayed report, the lack of searching, the missing paperwork. Some believe she met foul play, and that the truth was quietly buried with time. Theory 4, the world became too small for her genius. A poetic but haunting possibility.
that Barbara walked into the night looking for a place that matched the world inside her mind and never returned. Barbara Newhall Follett was a prodigy who burned too bright for the world she was given. She wrote words that felt like magic. She dreamed bigger than the life around her. And one winter evening, she stepped into the darkness and dissolved into legend. Her body was never found. Her fate never revealed. Her disappearance remains one of America's most haunting literary mysteries. A girl who grew up in books and walked into a final chapter nobody ever got to read.
October 21st, 1978. A clear Australian evening. 20-year-old pilot Frederick Valentich takes off in a lightweight Cessna 182 from Melbourne, heading toward King Island, a simple, routine trip he had flown many times before. But 47 minutes into the flight, something enters his airspace. Something he cannot identify. Something that will turn a routine journey into one of the most chilling aviation mysteries in history. At 7:06 p.m., Valentich radios Melbourne Air Traffic Control. His voice is steady at first. "Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. There's a large aircraft below me, just passed over the top." But controllers are confused. There's no traffic on radar, no scheduled flights, no military operations, nothing. They ask him to describe it. Frederick sounds confused. "It's long. It's moving fast. I can't make out its shape." Moments later, "It's playing with me." The controllers ask again, "What exactly is following you?" Frederick's voice trembles now. "It's not an aircraft." Those 4 words would become legendary. The object circles him, flying at impossible speeds, orbiting his tiny plane, descending, rising, chasing. Frederick reports a strange green light. The thing approaches again. "It's coming for me! It's not an aircraft!" There's shuffling, static, scraping metal, a sound like something mechanical twisting. Then, abruptly, one final transmission. "My engine is rough idling." A long pause. Then, a metallic scraping noise. "Sk." And then, silence. Frederick Valentich never speak again. Search teams scour the Bass Strait. Planes, ships, divers, nothing. Not even an oil slick, not a scrap of metal. His Cessna seems to have disintegrated into the night. To this day, no trace of pilot or aircraft has ever been found. And then something stranger. Multiple witnesses across southern Australia report seeing an oddly shaped glowing craft that evening. One couple swore they saw a green-lighted object hovering over the water. A farmer claimed he watched a UFO with a small airplane stuck to its side. Another witness drew a sketch nearly identical to Frederick's description. The Australian government classified many of these reports. When they were eventually released, pages were missing. So what could have happened? Theory 1. Mechanical failure. Some say Frederick became disoriented and crashed into the water. But there should have been debris. There was none. Theory 2. Hoax or suicide? Investigators explored this, but Frederick had no motive, no history, no signs of distress. And again, the debris problem remains. Theory 3. Abduction. The most dramatic theory claims Frederick's final seconds match other alleged UFO encounters. Strange lights, metallic noises, sudden engine failure, and a craft moving too fast to be human. and those final chilling words, "It's not an aircraft." Even more unsettling, months later, pieces of metal surfaced on a beach near the crash zone. But testing was inconclusive, and the remains mysteriously disappeared from public access. Frederick Valentich's disappearance left behind one of the most haunting radio exchanges in aviation history. A pilot, alone in the sky, describing an object that shouldn't exist, a craft that defied logic, and a final sound that felt like something closing in around him. No wreckage, no body, no plane, just a transmission cut off mid-breath, and a whispered mystery over the Bass Strait. More than 40 years later, people still ask, what did Frederick Valentich see that night? What circled his plane? What followed him into the dark? And why, in his final seconds, did he insist it's not an aircraft?
July 2014. A 28-year-old German tourist named Lars Mittank is vacationing in Bulgaria with friends. Beaches, nightclubs, football, cheap beer. A normal holiday. Nothing strange, nothing dangerous. Until one night, everything changes. Outside a bar on the Golden Sands Strip, Lars gets into a fight. A stupid, drunken argument about football teams. Someone punches him hard on the side of the head. Doctors later say he ruptured his eardrum. He's told not to fly home yet. He needs antibiotics, he needs rest. His friends want to stay with him, but Lars insists, "Go home, I'll be fine." It was the last time any of them ever saw him. Once alone, Lars's behavior shifts. He becomes paranoid, jumpy, convinced someone is following him. He calls his mother multiple times, whispering that 4 men are watching him, that they want to kill him, that he needs help. His mother hears fear in his voice, raw, shaking fear. The next morning, Lars leaves his hotel abruptly. He books a room in a cheap, run-down place near the airport. In CCTV footage, he paces the halls, looking out windows, hiding in elevators, clutching his bag like someone is after him. At one point, he texts his mother, "I don't feel safe. What should I do?" That night, his final recorded phone call, he tells her he's found a safe place to hide. No one ever discovers where that was. The next day, July 8th, Lars finally goes to Varna Airport to fly home. His ear is still injured, but he's desperate to leave Bulgaria. This is where the story becomes one of the most chilling disappearances ever caught on camera. Inside the airport medical office, the doctor tries to examine him, and suddenly something snaps. Lars's eyes widen. He stands up. He stammers, "I don't want to die here." Then he bolts. He sprints out of the office, runs down the hallway, shoves open the terminal doors, runs across the parking lot full speed, like his life depends on it. And then the footage captures the moment seen millions of times online. Lars runs across the road, crashes through a fence, and vanishes into a field and a patch of forest. Barefoot, no bags, no passport, no phone, nothing. People chase him, shouting, but Lars doesn't stop. He disappears into the trees. And that's it. He is never seen again. What makes this case so disturbing isn't just the disappearance, it's the possibilities behind it. Theory 1, foul play. Did someone really follow him? Did the men from the bar come after him? Was he threatened over something he never understood? But there's no evidence, no suspects, no proof of pursuit. Theory 2,
drugs, or poisoning. Some believe he was drugged, maybe at the bar or at the hotel. A bad reaction could cause paranoia and hallucinations. But no toxicology results exist. His blood was never tested. Theory 3. Head trauma. Doctors warn that a ruptured eardrum can be accompanied by a concussion. A brain injury could explain extreme paranoia. Was Lars's mind unraveling from the inside? But schizophrenia often begins in a man's late 20s. The sudden fear, the voices, the running, it fits the timeline. But Lars had zero history of mental illness. Theory 5. The most chilling possibility. Something happened to Lars in the days after the bar fight, something we still don't understand. Because the most haunting piece is this. Witnesses claimed they saw a barefoot man matching Lars's description running through fields and forests miles away. But every search team failed to find a single sign. No clothes, no remains, no backpack, nothing. It's as if the earth swallowed him. Lars Metank's disappearance is one of the most viewed missing person cases in internet history. The moment a terrified young man runs out of an airport and into silence. Was he running from someone? From something? Or from the chaos inside his own mind? No one knows. No trace has ever been found. And the last image the world has of him is a man sprinting through the summer heat, eyes full of panic, running like he knew he'd never get another chance. The disappearance of Lars Metank remains one of the most chilling mysteries of the 21st century, a vanishing that feels less like a crime and more like a nightmare caught on camera.
Winter 1959. 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out into the frozen wilderness of the Russian mountains, a place so harsh and remote that even locals feared it. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, disciplined, brilliant, tough. His team was the best of the best, strong, skilled, confident. The goal? Reach the Otorten Mountain, a brutal but achievable expedition for hikers of their caliber. But none of them ever returned. When rescuers finally found their abandoned campsite weeks later, what they discovered didn't just spark fear, it sparked one of the greatest mysteries in history. The team's tent was found on the snowy slope of a mountain the indigenous Mansi called Kholat Syakh, the Mountain of the Dead. The tent wasn't blown open, it wasn't unzipped, it was slashed open from the inside as if the hikers cut their way out in panic. Inside, boots left behind, clothes neatly folded, cameras still running, diaries mid-sentence. The hikers had run into -30 degrees Celsius, barefoot, barely dressed, in the dead of night. As rescuers followed the trail, things only got stranger. The first 2 bodies were found under a cedar tree. They had built a small fire, but their hands were shredded, bark lodged between their fingers as if they had desperately climbed the tree to escape something on the ground. More bodies were found scattered across the snow, frozen in violent positions, some crawling toward the tent, some collapsed mid-step, all half-dressed, as if their escape had been so sudden they never had time to think. But the final 4 bodies, the ones found months later, turned the incident from terrifying to unexplainable. 1 had a crushed skull. 2 had shattered ribs, injuries so extreme that experts compared them to car crash trauma. Another hiker was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips, yet there were no external wounds, no cuts, no stab marks, no bruises consistent with an attack. Just massive internal damage inflicted by a force no one could understand. And then came the radiation.
Some of their clothing carried elevated levels of radioactivity, even though these students had no known contact with radioactive materials. Theories began exploding like wildfire. Theory 1. Avalanche. A simple, clean explanation, but the slope was too shallow for a significant slide, and the footprints leaving the tent were calm, orderly, not the frantic scatter of people fleeing a collapsing wall of snow. Theory 2. Secret military tests. Some believe the hikers stumbled into covert missile experiment or chemical test. Strange lights were reported in the sky that night by witnesses miles away. Radiation on their clothing only deepened the suspicion. Theory 3. Infrasound. A rare weather phenomenon that causes low-frequency vibrations, triggering panic and hallucinations. It could explain the sudden escape, but not the massive internal injuries. Theory 4. Mansi attack. Authorities considered it, briefly, but there were no footprints except the hikers, no signs of struggle, nothing stolen. Theory 5. Something non-human. This is the theory people whisper about. The missing tongue, the tree-climbing panic, the strange lights in the sky, the internal trauma without external wounds. Did the hikers encounter something in the darkness? Something that terrified them so profoundly they ripped open their tent and fled into the frozen night? Whatever it was, it left no tracks, no evidence, just 9 bodies frozen in fear. In 2019, Russia officially concluded the hikers died from a natural avalanche. But experts and historians around the world agree that explanation doesn't match the physical evidence. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains a cold case of pure nightmare, a moment when 9 brilliant young explorers stepped into the mountains and met something that turned their final night from a normal expedition into a legend of terror. No survivors, no eyewitnesses, just a slashed tent, broken bones, and silence buried in snow. More than 60 years later, the question still echoes across the frozen slopes. What really happened on the Mountain of the Dead?
August 18th, 1587, on a small, wind-swept island off the coast of what is now North Carolina, a newborn girl cried out into the humid air of the New World. Her name was Virginia Dare, the first English child ever born in America. A symbol of hope, a promise of a new life, a future carved out of wilderness. But only 3 years later, she would vanish into one of history's most haunting mysteries. Virginia was born into the Roanoke colony, an ambitious English settlement led by her grandfather, Governor John White. But even as she took her first breath, the colony was already cracking. Food was scarce, relations with the local tribes were tense. Supplies from England were desperately needed. So when Virginia was less than a month old, her grandfather set sail back to England for help, promising to return quickly. But he didn't know that war was about to trap him on the other side of the world. England was preparing to fight the Spanish Armada. No ships could leave, no supplies could travel, and John White, the man who held the colony's survival in his hands, was stranded for 3 long years. When he finally returned to Roanoke Island in 1590, desperate to see his family, to hold his granddaughter again, he found silence. The houses had been dismantled. The fort had vanished. The settlement was abandoned, not attacked, but taken apart carefully like a people preparing to leave. And carved into a wooden post was a single word: Croatoan. No bodies, no signs of violence, no smoke on the horizon, just that one mysterious, almost cryptic message: John White believed the colonists had moved to Croatoan Island, home of a friendly tribe, but storms forced him back to England before he could search further. He never saw Virginia again. And what happened to her and to all 115 men, women, and children of Roanoke became the oldest unsolved disappearance in American history. Theories. Theory 1. Assimilation with native tribes. Some believe the colonists integrated with the Croatoan people, disappearing peacefully into their society. Legends of unusually light-skinned tribal members support this idea, including stories of a young, fair-haired girl. Theory 2. Hostile attack. Others think they were killed by rival tribes, but no mass graves were ever found and the settlement's dismantling looked organized, not panicked. Theory 4. Starvation and migration. The colonists may have fled in search of food, trying to survive in a hostile land, only to die along the coast or in the forests. Theory 5. Spanish capture. Spain, furious at England's colonizing attempts, may have wiped out the colony, but yet again, no evidence. Theory 6. The myth grown from truth. To modern America, Virginia Dare isn't just a lost child. She has become a symbol of innocence swallowed by a wild and unknown world. Virginia was only a baby when she vanished. No voice, no memories, no chance to choose her own path. She was born at the dawn of a nation and then disappeared into the roots of its oldest legend. More than 400 years later, the name Virginia Dare still drifts through the Carolina winds, a ghost of the New World's first child, lost forever with a colony that stepped off the map and into myth.
In the summer of 2002, one of the most charismatic and unpredictable players in NBA history sailed into the Pacific Ocean and was never seen again. His name was Bison Dele, formerly Brian Williams, a 6'10" powerhouse who played for the Bulls alongside Michael Jordan, won a championship, and then walked away from millions to chase something bigger than basketball: freedom. Dele quit the NBA at the height of his career. He traveled the world, learned new languages, played music with strangers, lived in remote islands, and bought a sailboat he named the Hakuna Matata. It was his floating escape, his way to disappear from fame, pressure, and money. But he didn't know he would disappear for real. On July 6, 2002, Dele set sail from Tahiti with Serena Carlin, his girlfriend, Bertrand Saldo, the boat's captain, and Miles DeBoard, his brother, who boarded days later. And after that, the world heard nothing. No radio calls, no updates, no docking logs, just silence drifting across the Pacific. A few weeks later, Dele's boat was found, thousands of miles away in Tahiti. But someone else was sailing it, his brother. Miles DeBoard, troubled, estranged, jealous, obsessed with Bison's success, suddenly appeared alone with the Hakuna Matata. The deck had been repainted, the boat's name had been changed, and he wouldn't explain where the others were. Then he tried to buy gold using Bison Dele's passport and signatures. That's when police realized something was deeply wrong. When investigators confronted him, Miles told a chilling story. He said the four had argued at sea, that Bison accidentally killed Serena in a struggle, that the captain panicked and Bison killed him too, and that Miles, terrified, killed Bison in self-defense. But something didn't add up. There were no bodies, no distress calls, no attempt to return to shore, just a freshly repainted boat and a man running. As pressure mounted, Miles fled to Mexico, overdosed on insulin, and fell into a coma.
Before he died, he never revealed the full truth. The 3 people aboard the Hakuna Matata, Bison Dele, Serena Carlin, and Captain Bertrand Saldeau, were never found. No remains, no wreckage, not even a life jacket, just open ocean. But investigators believe one thing. Bison Dele was murdered, not by pirates, not by strangers, but likely by the person he trusted least, his own brother. The tragedy is almost Shakespearean. A beloved athlete who rejected fame to chase peace, a jealous brother drowning in insecurity, a paradise that turned into a crime scene without witnesses, and a boat drifting alone on the horizon, hiding a story that only the dead could tell. Bison Dele vanished not because of storms or nature, but because he sailed into the ocean with someone carrying years of resentment and darkness. To this day, the Pacific holds the final chapter. A champion, a lover, a captain, 3 souls swallowed by the deep, leaving behind one of the most haunting disappearances in sports history.
October 1918, the final brutal months of World War I. In the tangled forests of the Argonne, where fog clung to shattered trees and the ground was soaked with mud and blood, an American unit marched straight into one of the strangest mysteries of the war. They would later be called the Lost Battalion. Not because they died, not because they were defeated, but because history itself seemed to lose them. Their names missing from reports, their stories scattered, and key details erased. It all began with the 77th Division, a group of mostly immigrant soldiers from New York City. Under Major Charles Whittlesey, nearly 700 men pushed deep into the Argonne forest as part of a massive Allied offensive. But communication lines were chaotic, maps were nearly useless, and the terrain was a nightmare. Steep ravines, dense woods, German machine guns hidden everywhere. Still, the battalion advanced and advanced and advanced until they realized the truth. They were completely surrounded, cut off from reinforcements, cut off from supplies, cut off from the entire American army. For nearly 6 days they held a tiny patch of forest, a ravine no bigger than a small park, while German forces shelled them from all directions. Their food ran out, their water ran out, their ammunition dwindled. Still, they refused to surrender, even when the Germans sent a messenger offering a chance to give up peacefully. Major Whittlesey didn't even dignify it with a spoken answer. He simply stayed silent. The Germans returned fire with a vengeance. When American artillery tried to help, they accidentally began shelling the battalion itself, unaware of their exact location. Dozens were killed by friendly fire until a carrier pigeon named Sherry M.E. delivered a desperate message that stopped the barrage. By the time rescuers finally broke through, only 194 men were still standing. But here's where the story twists into something stranger. In the chaos of the war's final weeks, official reports began contradicting each other. Names of survivors didn't match. Casualty lists were incomplete. Entire companies seemed to appear and disappear in documents. Researchers discovered missing service records, lost medical logs, and soldiers who were clearly there yet erased from all paperwork. And years later, families reported something even more disturbing. Some soldiers who were listed as dead returned home. Others listed as alive never came back. How does a unit fight one of the most heroic battles in U.S. military history and then vanish from the records like a ghost formation? Some historians believe it was bureaucratic chaos. Others blame the rushed armistice. Some think the U.S. military deliberately buried details of the disaster. But there are darker theories, Theory 1. Secret operations. Rumor suggests that parts of the Lost Battalion were diverted on classified missions during the chaotic final days of the war. Missions never recorded, never acknowledged. Theory 2. Friendly fire cover-up. Some believe the U.S. Army erased key documents to hide the scale of friendly fire casualties. Theory 3. Wartime paper deaths. A theory claims that misidentification and rushed paperwork created phantom soldiers, men alive on the front but dead in the records, and vice versa. Theory 4. The forest took its own toll. The Argonne was filled with unmarked graves, collapsed trenches, and missing patrols. Many were never found at all. But whatever the cause, one fact remains chilling. The Lost Battalion wasn't lost on the battlefield. They were lost afterwards, lost in archives, lost in bureaucracy, lost in the fog of a war too massive for its own record keepers. A unit that stood against impossible odds, that refused to surrender, that survived 6 days of hell surrounded by enemies, simply faded into paperwork shadows, like ghosts walking out of history. The Lost Battalion fought their way out of the Argonne, but the world never fully found them again.
In the early 1950s, when the world wanted cheerful pop and spotless radio stars, a quiet young woman in New York City was writing songs no one had ever heard before. Her name was Connie Converse, and she was creating music 20 years ahead of her era. Haunting melodies, finger-picked guitar, lyrics raw and intimate, songs about loneliness, desire, depression, and dreams too fragile to touch. If she had been born in the 1970s, she would have been a legend, a Joni Mitchell, a Leonard Cohen, a Bob Dylan before Bob Dylan existed. But in her own time, nobody knew what to do with her. She recorded her songs in small apartments, played at a few parties, and performed once on CBS Morning with Walter Cronkite. And even then, the world shrugged and looked away. Connie grew older, more tired, more invisible. Her letters became heavy with heartbreak. Her life's work, she feared, meant nothing. And then, one summer morning in 1974, she made a decision that still chills people today. She wrote a series of goodbye letters to her friends and family. Calm, polite, devastating. She said she needed to make a new start, though she didn't know where or when. She packed up her belongings, loaded them into her small Volkswagen Beetle, and drove away. No one ever saw her again. There were no sightings, no phone calls, no financial traces, no car, no body, nothing. Connie Converse, the woman whose voice was too ahead of its time, simply vanished. But here's the most heartbreaking part. Decades after she disappeared, someone found an old box of reel-to-reel tapes. Inside were her songs, delicate, brilliant, and astonishingly modern. They were released to the public, and suddenly Connie Converse became a cult icon, a ghost hitting the world too late. Music critics now call her the lost mother of the singer-songwriter movement. Her songs have millions of streams. She studied in universities, covered by modern artists, adored by listeners who say she sings directly to the lonely corners of their souls. Connie Converse finally found an audience, but she never lived to hear their applause. Theories about her disappearance. Theory 1. She ended her life.
Some believe Connie drove to a remote lake or forest and took her own life, a quiet final act for a woman who felt forgotten. Theory 2. She started over. Others think she reinvented herself somewhere else, changed her name, found peace, escaped the pressure of unrealized dreams. Theory 3. She was in an accident. She may have crashed in a place where the car was never found, lost in rivers or wilderness. Theory 4. She chose isolation. Friends described her as deeply introspective, a woman who might have sought solitude far from society. But no theory feels complete, because Connie Converse is more than a disappearance. She's a symbol of an artist the world wasn't ready for, a woman who sang her heart into a microphone at a time when no one was listening, a pioneer swallowed by silence. Decades later, her voice has finally risen from the tape hiss and the shadows, whispering across the world she left behind. But the woman herself? She remains out there somewhere, a mystery, on a long highway, a car disappearing around a bend into the unknown.
In the year 1611, on a frozen sea somewhere between the edge of the known world and the blank spaces on old maps, one of history's greatest explorers met one of history's most chilling fates. His name was Henry Hudson, the man who discovered the river that would become New York City, the legendary navigator obsessed with finding the fabled Northwest Passage, a shortcut across the Arctic to Asia. But his obsession would become his doom. Hudson's final voyage aboard the ship Discovery began with promise. He sailed deep into the Arctic, pushing farther than any English expedition before him. He charted the massive, icy inland sea now known as Hudson Bay, convinced he was on the brink of discovering the route that had eluded explorers for centuries. But he was wrong. The bay wasn't a passage, it was a trap. Winter crashed down early. Ice froze the ship in place. Food disappeared. Rations turned to rot. The crew, exhausted, starving, and furious, watched their leader continue to chase a dream while they faced death. And then came spring, not with hope, but with mutiny. On June 22, 1611, Hudson awoke to find himself overpowered by the men he once commanded. He, his teenage son, John, and 7 loyal crew members were forced into a small open boat. A boat with no mast, no charts, no compass, no supplies. The Discovery's crew cut the rope, raised their sails, and left them behind on the endless, icy water. It was one of the most brutal mutinies in exploration history. The last anyone ever saw of Henry Hudson was that tiny boat drifting slowly into the fog of Hudson Bay, silent, powerless, and doomed. No one knows what happened next. Theories. Theory 1. They starved and froze to death. The Arctic has no mercy. With no food, no shelter, and no way to navigate, the group may have perished within days, but no remains were ever found. Theory 2. They reached land and were taken in. Some believe Hudson and the survivors reached the coast and lived among indigenous tribes. There were later sightings of white men living in remote communities, but none could be proven. Theory 3. They reached land only to die in conflicts sparked by desperation and hunger. Theory 4.
they drifted into the Arctic Ocean. The currents of Hudson Bay can carry a small boat hundreds of miles into open sea. If so, their final resting place is somewhere beneath the ice, unreachable forever. Theory 5. The survivors lied. When the mutineers returned to England, their stories were inconsistent. Some historians suspect they knew more than they admitted, that Hudson and his supporters may have been killed not by nature, but by mutineer hands. But the Arctic keeps its secrets well. What we know is this: Henry Hudson, the man whose name is carved onto rivers, bays, and cities, vanished in one of the most remote places on Earth, cast adrift by those he once commanded, swallowed by a sea he believed would lead him to glory. Instead, it led him to oblivion. To this day, the fate of Henry Hudson remains frozen in mystery, a ghost story drifting across the northern waters, a reminder that even the greatest explorers can disappear into the very horizons they chase.
July 1918. Deep in the Ural Mountains of Russia, in a dim, cramped basement lit by a single bulb, the fate of one of the world's most famous royal families collapsed in gunfire. Tsar Nicholas II, the last emperor of Russia, was executed alongside his wife and children, including the youngest daughter, 17-year-old Grand Duchess Anastasia. At least, that's what history books say. But for more than 100 years, people have whispered the same impossible question. What if Anastasia survived? Her disappearance became the greatest royal mystery of the 20th century. A princess like no other. Anastasia Romanov wasn't the perfect, polished royal that portraits portrayed. She was mischievous, sharp-witted, funny, rebellious, the spark of the family. She wasn't the heir, she wasn't the diplomat, she was the free spirit. And when the Romanovs were executed, her absence among the confirmed bodies became a global obsession. Reports from the basement said the scene was chaotic: the gunfire, the smoke, the confusion. Some claimed a few children were still moving after the first volley. Some swore a couple escaped through the smoke. Some insisted the youngest daughters had sewn jewels into their clothing, creating a kind of accidental armor. And so the legend of the missing princess began. The world goes hunting for Anastasia. In the years that followed, rumors spread like wildfire. Strangers claimed they spotted a teenage girl fleeing the scene. Monarchists swore she had escaped with loyal guards. Europe was filled with imposters, each claiming to be Anastasia, hoping for fame, fortune, or just a new identity. But one woman changed everything. Anna Anderson, the most famous Anastasia of all time. In 1920, a woman was pulled from a canal in Berlin after a suicide attempt. Silent, fragile, traumatized. She refused to tell anyone her name. Then she whispered, "I am Anastasia." She knew details only the Romanovs should have known. She had scars matching accounts of the assassination, and many who knew Anastasia said the resemblance was uncanny. European courts fought over her identity for decades. Some Romanov relatives accepted her. Others called her a fraud. Anna Anderson became a global mystery, a living question mark that refused to go away. She died in 1984, still claiming she was the lost Duchess. It wasn't until years later, with DNA evidence, that scientists proved she wasn't Anastasia. But by then, the myth was unbreakable. The bones that weren't there. When the Romanov grave was discovered in 1991, it contained only 9 bodies.
Missing, Alexei, the Tsarovich, and one of the daughters. Many believed that daughter was Anastasia. It wasn't until 2007, when another grave was found nearby, that two more sets of remains were identified, believed to be Alexei and Anastasia. But not everyone accepts that conclusion. Some say the DNA tests were rushed, politically motivated, or contaminated. Some believe one Romanov child truly escaped that night. Theories that refuse to die. Theory 1. Anastasia escaped the basement. Chaos, smoke, bullets ricocheting. In the confusion, she may have slipped through the door or been rescued by guards sympathetic to the royal family. Theory 2. She survived but died in hiding. Many think a young girl survived the execution, but succumbed later to wounds or illness in the forest, buried in an unmarked grave. Theory 3. She lived under a secret identity. Some accounts claim a mysterious Russian girl lived quietly in Romania or Poland, never revealing her past. Theory 4. Political necessity buried the truth. In the chaos of post-revolution Russia, admitting that a Romanov heir escaped could have destabilized the new regime. Some believe evidence was destroyed to avoid this. Theory 5. The DNA is correct. She died in 1918. End of story. But myths don't end with facts, especially when the facts arrived 90 years late. A princess who refused to be forgotten. Whether Anastasia died in that basement or escaped into legend, one thing is certain. The world needed her to survive. She became a symbol of hope in dark times, the lost princess who might still be out there, living a quiet life far from the shadow of a fallen empire. To this day, people still search archives, diaries, secret letters, and unmarked graves, still chasing the idea that somewhere, somehow, Anastasia Romanov did not die in 1918. Because sometimes, history buries people. And sometimes, legends dig them back up. The Missing Princess, the last Romanov mystery. Anastasia, the girl who vanished into myth and never truly came back.
In the 1960s, while the world was obsessed with movie stars, glamorous scandals, and Hollywood royalty, one young man walked away from all of it. His name was Sean Flynn, the only son of legendary actor Errol Flynn, a man born into fame, fortune, and a life most people only dream of. But Sean didn't want the red carpets, the velvet ropes, or the easy road laid out in front of him. He wanted danger. He wanted truth. He wanted real stories, the kind that could shake the world by the shoulders. So he left Hollywood behind and stepped directly into the fire of war. Sean reinvented himself as a combat photographer, not just any photographer, but one of the most fearless on the planet. He rode with soldiers into firefights. He crawled through rice paddies under machine gun fire. He photographed chaos so close you could feel the heat of explosions in his images. But his final assignment would take him somewhere even more dangerous than Vietnam. Cambodia, 1970, a country collapsing into civil war, where the Khmer Rouge hunted journalists like prey. On April 6th, Sean Flynn and fellow journalist Dana Stone set off on motorcycles down a lonely Cambodian road. They were chasing rumors of Viet Cong positions, the kind of story other reporters avoided. The sun was blistering, the road was silent, and somewhere near a small checkpoint outside the town of Chi Pu, they vanished. Witnesses later claimed Khmer Rouge fighters stopped them, that the soldiers took their cameras, forced them into the jungle, and marched them away at gunpoint. But that's where the trail ends. No remains, no confirmed sightings, no negotiations, no graves. Just two men swallowed by one of the most brutal regimes in human history. Theories about what happened. Theory 1. Executed by the Khmer Rouge.
Most historians believe Sean and Dana were taken to a jungle camp, interrogated, and executed, their bodies buried in unmarked graves. But no site has ever been proven. Theory 2. Held as prisoners for years. Some accounts claim foreign captives were moved constantly, kept alive for propaganda or labor. Rumors circulated for decades that Sean had been spotted in remote camps long after his disappearance. Theory 3. Escaped into the jungle. A few witnesses claimed 2 Americans fled from captivity and ran into the forest, but the Khmer Rouge territory was almost impossible to survive. Theory 4. False leads and deliberate cover-ups. Cambodian officials gave conflicting stories. Villagers contradicted one another. Some say evidence was destroyed in the chaos of the Civil War. Even today, the truth is tangled in lies, fear, and the ruins of a nation fractured by genocide. The most haunting part. Sean Flynn didn't die a Hollywood star. He died, somewhere, somehow, as a man chasing truth in the darkest corners of humanity. His camera was found. His motorcycle disappeared. His story became legend. His mother spent decades searching, hiring investigators, digging through jungle graves, begging governments for answers. She never got them. In 2010, bones rumored to be Sean's were excavated, but DNA tests proved they weren't him. He is still missing, still unaccounted for, still part of the long, painful list of journalists who vanished seeking the truth. A legend without an ending. Sean Flynn wasn't just a celebrity kid. He was the rare kind of person who walked away from a golden life to walk into a battlefield because he believed the world needed to see what war really looked like. He photographed courage. He photographed tragedy. And then he became part of the story himself. Somewhere in the Cambodian jungle, the truth about Sean Flynn is buried. A final frame never captured. A last chapter never written. Hollywood gave him a famous name. History gave him a mystery. And the war took everything else.
In the age when adventure meant something, when the world was still wild, maps still had blank spaces, and only the bold dared fill them in, one man stood above all others. His name was Richard Halliburton. Explorer, writer, daredevil. A man who didn't just chase danger, he lived inside it. Halliburton swam the length of the Panama Canal. He danced on the Great Pyramid of Giza. He disappeared into forbidden cities, crossed deserts alone, climbed mountains without gear, and wrote best-selling books about every insane thing he survived. He wasn't just an adventurer, he was the world's first travel influencer, decades before the word existed. But his final journey would turn into one of the ocean's great mysteries. The final challenge. The world edged toward war, but Halliburton had a new obsession. Build a Chinese junk-style sailing ship, a wooden vessel straight out of ancient legend, and sail it across the entire Pacific Ocean. He named the ship the Sea Dragon. It was beautiful, it was handmade, and it was, by almost every expert's opinion, absolutely not fit for the journey he had planned. But Halliburton didn't care. He was chasing history. On March 4th, 1939, the Sea Dragon left Hong Kong, beginning a 6,000-mile voyage towards San Francisco. With Halliburton aboard, the ship battled storms, massive swells, and unpredictable winds. But the adventurer remained cheerful, sending letters bragging about the crew's optimism and the romance of the voyage. Then they sailed into a storm, a real storm, a monster of the Pacific. The last message. The Sea Dragon's final radio transmission came on March 23rd. Southerly gale, heavy seas, leaks above and below deck. Please inform Halliburton's father that all is well. All is well, but nothing was well. After that message, silence. Days passed, then weeks,
then months. The U.S. Navy searched thousands of miles of ocean. Not a splinter of wood, not a life vest, not a scrap of debris was ever found. The Pacific had swallowed the Sea Dragon whole. Theories about what happened. 1. The storm destroyed the ship. The most accepted explanation. The junk simply wasn't built strong enough to survive the gale. One rogue wave and it would have shattered instantly. 2. A structural collapse. Experts later revealed the wood used to build the ship was untreated and already deteriorating. The ship may have broken apart from the inside long before the storm hit. 3. Fire on board. Leaked documents suggested fuel tanks were unstable and could have exploded during rough seas. 4. Sunk by a freighter. Some suspected a cargo ship struck the Sea Dragon in the storm and kept silent to avoid blame. 5. Halliburton faked his death. A conspiracy theory that the ever-dramatic adventurer staged his disappearance to begin a new life in anonymity. But no evidence supports it, and Halliburton loved the spotlight too much to abandon it forever. The legend lives on. Richard Halliburton wasn't just an explorer, he was a living myth, a man who believed life should be spectacular or nothing. He sought the extreme, he chased the impossible, and he died doing something only he would attempt, crossing the Pacific in an ancient-style ship with the entire world watching. To this day, the Sea Dragon remains one of the ocean's greatest unsolved vanishings. No wreck, no bodies, no scrap of debris. Just a final radio call, a rising storm, and the ocean closing over one of the greatest adventurers who ever lived. Richard Halliburton vanished into the Pacific, exactly the way he lived, boldly, fearlessly, and with a touch of legend.
In 2005, on the sun-soaked beaches of Aruba, a place known for turquoise water, all-night parties, and perfect vacation photos, one of the most chilling disappearances of the 21st century unfolded. Her name was Natalie Holloway, an 18-year-old from Alabama, honors student, loved by friends, adored by family. She had just graduated high school. Her entire future was opening in front of her. This was supposed to be a celebration, a once-in-a-lifetime senior trip, 7 days of fun before life as an adult began. Natalie would never return home. The last night. May 30th, 2005. Natalie was last seen leaving a local nightclub called Carlos and Charlie's. She was smiling, laughing, and climbing into a car with 3 young men, Joran van der Sloot, Deepak Kalpoe, Satish Kalpoe. They drove off into the warm Caribbean night. That was the last confirmed sighting of Natalie Holloway. When her friends gathered to leave for their flight the next morning, her seat on the plane was empty. Within hours, Aruba transformed from a tourist paradise into a crime scene. The investigation that shook the world. Police, volunteers, FBI agents, and even psychics joined the search. Thousands of tips poured in. The island was combed, beaches, marshes, landfills, abandoned buildings, the ocean. Nothing. The 3 young men gave conflicting stories. Natalie was dropped at her hotel. No, she wasn't. Yes, she was. No one could agree on the details. Their timeline twisted and reshaped like smoke every time investigators pressed them. Suspicion focused on Joran van der Sloot, charismatic, manipulative, and changing his story every time he opened his mouth. But without a body, without physical evidence, prosecutors had nothing, and Natalie's case stalled. Theories that haunt the case. 1. Joran van der Sloot killed her. The most widely believed theory is that Natalie suffered an overdose or was harmed, and Joran, with help, disposed of her body. Some believe she was dumped at sea, weighted, and sunk.
In later years, Joran bragged, confessed, then retracted confessions dozens of times. Every story different, every story suspicious, every story designed to keep attention on him. He is widely believed to know exactly what happened. Human trafficking. Some investigators explored whether Natalie was kidnapped and sold into trafficking, given Aruba's proximity to major smuggling routes, but no verifiable evidence ever emerged. An accidental death covered up. Some believe Natalie may have collapsed from shock, alcohol, or a reaction, and the men panicked, disposing of her body to avoid charges. A disposal site that will never be found. A chilling theory suggests Natalie was placed in a construction landfill or crushed in a dump truck that regularly destroyed concrete and debris, meaning recovery would be impossible. The twist years later. In 2010, during a sting operation in Peru, Joran van der Sloot murdered another young woman, Stephanie Flores, just 5 years to the day after Natalie vanished. It didn't solve the case, but it confirmed the darkest suspicions about him. Decades of searching, investigating, pleading, and hoping still haven't brought Natalie home. Her mother, Beth Holloway, pursued every lead, across continents, through jails, into dangerous territory, refusing to let her daughter become just another cold case. The island mystery that never dies. Natalie Holloway's disappearance is more than a mystery. It's a wound that never healed. It exposed failures in international policing, loopholes in local law, and the terrifying power of a suspect who knew he couldn't be proven guilty. To this day, there is no body, no confirmed cause of death, no final answers. Just a tropical island, a vanished girl, and a name the world will never forget. Natalie Holloway, the girl who walked into the night and never came back.
December 4th, 1977. A routine evening flight from Penang to Kuala Lumpur turned into one of the most chilling aviation mysteries in history. The aircraft, a Boeing 737-200, flight number MAS 653, passengers 100 souls, including families, businessmen, and a crew who had no idea they were about to vanish into legend. The flight took off on time, the passengers settling in for what should have been a short, uneventful ride. But just minutes before landing, everything went wrong. The last contact. At 19:20 local time, air traffic control received the flight's routine message, nothing unusual. Moments later, the plane veered off course. The captain's last words over the radio were garbled, almost panicked. Then, silence. The plane disappeared from radar. No mayday, no distress signal, nothing. Search and rescue teams scoured the skies and the surrounding terrain. Hours turned into days. Debris was eventually found in a swampy area near Tanjung Kupang. But the fuselage offered no clues. The cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder were too badly damaged to recover meaningful information. All 100 passengers were presumed dead. And the question that haunted investigators: what happened on Flight 653? Theories. 1. A hijacking. The official investigation concluded that the plane had been hijacked. Evidence suggested an intruder gained access to the cockpit, possibly using a weapon. But no motive, no terrorist group, and no claim of responsibility ever surfaced. 2. Pilot suicide or crew sabotage. Some experts argue the captain or crew could have intentionally crashed the plane, but there was no known history of psychological distress, and nothing in their background suggested it. 3. Mechanical failure. An onboard fire or sudden mechanical fault is always possible, but the flight was a short route, well maintained, and no evidence of malfunction was discovered from the wreckage. 4. Unknown external attack. Some fringe theories suggest a missile or external attack.
Nothing was proven, nothing was confirmed. The haunting legacy. Flight 653 remains one of Malaysia's deadliest and most mysterious aviation tragedies, a somber reminder that sometimes a plane can vanish without warning. It predates MH370 by decades, another Malaysian flight disappearing without explanation, leaving investigators, families, and the world with more questions than answers. The passengers of MAS 653 were never found alive. Their final moments are locked away in a mystery no one can solve. And like MH370 decades later, the plane disappeared not with a bang, but without a trace, leaving only the echo of lost lives across the skies of Malaysia.
Thousands of years ago, along the banks of the Nile, the greatest monuments of human ambition rose from the desert sands, the pyramids of Egypt. Towering, perfect, eternal. But even these magnificent tombs hide a secret darker than the desert night. The builders of the pharaoh's tombs were not slaves. They were skilled craftsmen, artisans, engineers. Men who knew the secrets of the afterlife. They knew the hidden chambers. They knew the traps. They knew the tomb's treasures. Every statue, every jewel, every sacred scroll. And some of them vanished. The mystery of the disappearances. Archaeologists discovered something chilling in the workers' villages near the pyramids. Bones buried in secret pits, skeletons missing from official records, workers who disappeared mid-project, never to return. Ancient texts hint at a fear that went beyond death, a curse on those who betrayed the tomb's secrets. Hieroglyphs describe mysterious punishments, sudden illness, accidents on the construction site, or being swallowed by the desert. Some historians believe the pharaoh's high priests had enforcers, men who silenced builders who knew too much to protect hidden chambers and treasures. The result? Entire crews disappeared, leaving partially completed tombs, hastily buried records, and an unbroken chain of mysteries. Theories behind the vanishings. Number 1. Pharaoh's curse. Perhaps the builders angered the gods or violated sacred laws. Ancient writings claim that the eyes of Horus would punish the disobedient, and some workers were said to have vanished before the sun rose. Number 2. Political purge. Some pharaohs were paranoid. Builders who knew too much about royal secrets might have been quietly executed, their names erased, their existence erased, and their families warned to stay silent. Number 3. Accidental deaths hidden from history. Construction was dangerous. Massive stones, collapsing scaffolds, and Nile floods. It's possible many died and were buried secretly to preserve the image of the pharaoh's perfect kingdom. Number 4. Hidden knowledge. Some speculate that certain workers discovered secret chambers that were deliberately erased from history. Chambers filled with treasures, forbidden texts, or evidence of dynasties long erased. And so the men who knew were removed, leaving the tombs silent and the pyramids impenetrable. The legacy of the lost builders. Today the pyramids still stand, perfect, imposing, untouchable. But the stories of the men who built them linger in shadows. They've vanished without a trace. Their knowledge, half remembered in fragmented records and whispers, was buried alongside them. Every excavation uncovers more: broken pottery, scattered bones, mysterious tunnels. But the truth of why the builders disappeared remains locked in history. The lost pharaoh's tomb builders,
Men who knew too much and paid the ultimate price. The pyramids still guard their secrets, and the desert still whispers of vanished lives, hidden for eternity beneath golden sand and stone.
December 1st, 1946. A crisp autumn day in Vermont's rugged Green Mountains. The leaves crunched underfoot, the air was sharp, and the small town of Bennington seemed quiet, peaceful, normal. But that day would mark the beginning of a mystery that still chills New England to its core. Her name was Paula Jean Weldon, an 18-year-old college student from New York, bright, independent, and adventurous. She had gone hiking on the Long Trail, a path that cuts through the dense forests and steep slopes of Vermont. She told no one she would vanish. The last sighting. Paula started her hike in the late morning. Witnesses saw her smiling, carrying a backpack, waving to locals. She promised to return in a few hours. She never did. When she failed to return, a search began. Dogs, hikers, and eventually state police combed the forests. Planes flew overhead. Villagers scoured the rivers and ravines. No trace of Paula. No footprints leading away. No body. Not a single clue. She had simply disappeared into thin air. The Bennington Triangle. Her disappearance wasn't the first in the area. Over the previous 50 years, at least 5 other people vanished under mysterious circumstances in southwestern Vermont. Locals whispered of a pattern. Some called it the Bennington Triangle, an area where the normal laws of nature seemed suspended. Strange lights, eerie sounds, sudden chills. People claimed the forest itself swallowed visitors. Paula's story became the centerpiece of this chilling folklore. Theories about her vanishing. 1. Accidental fall or animal attack. Some experts think Paula may have fallen into a crevice or river and drowned, but no remains were ever found. Vermont's rivers and ravines are heavily searched and mapped. It's almost impossible to vanish entirely. 2. Kidnapping. Some believe she may have been abducted by a passing stranger, but there were no eyewitness accounts, no ransom notes, no leads. 3. Paranormal theories. The Bennington Triangle spawned speculation about interdimensional portals, UFO activity, or forest spirits. While unproven, the pattern of disappearances added weight to these eerie ideas. 4. Voluntary disappearance. Some suggest Paula ran away, but her personality, her responsibilities, and her belongings left behind make this theory unlikely. The legacy of Paula Jean Weldon. Her disappearance remains officially unsolved. No bones, no clues, no answers. Her disappearance launched Vermont's largest search at the time and inspired countless books, documentaries, and investigations. It turned the forests of Bennington into a place of haunting legend, a region where hikers and locals alike feel the shadow of unanswered questions. Even decades later, the Long Trail keeps its secrets tight, and the name Paula Jean Weldon whispers in the cold mountain wind, a reminder that sometimes people vanish, and the world never finds them again. The Bennington Triangle, where the forest is alive, and sometimes it takes people without a trace. Christmas Eve, 1945. A quiet night in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family had just finished dinner. The children were tucked in, the house cozy, the fire glowing. Then the night erupted in flames. A fire destroyed the Sodder home. Smoke and chaos filled the night. Neighbors called the fire department. Parents screamed. Children ran or were trapped. When the fire died down, the horror became clear. 5 of the Sodder children were missing, vanished, gone, without a trace. The mystery deepens. The fire consumed the house, but strangely, no remains of the missing children were ever found. The fire reportedly burned unevenly. Parts of the house survived almost intact. The family tried desperately to locate remains, even hiring grave diggers and specialists. Nothing appeared. Most fires leave at least bone fragments. Not this one. A hidden clue. Months later, a strange letter arrived. You will never see them again. They are in good hands. Signed, a mysterious X. It hinted at kidnapping, not death. The family realized this might not have been an accident. Other oddities emerged. Phone lines were cut that night. A strange car was seen near the house earlier. Neighbors reported suspicious men loitering nearby in the days leading up to Christmas. Some believe the fire was a cover-up. The Sodder children may have been taken, possibly because of their outspoken political views or business disputes. Theories about what happened. 1. Kidnapping. Most evidence points toward abduction. The missing children may have been taken and raised under new identities, forever lost to their family. 2. Mafia retaliation. The Sodders were Italian-American, and George Sodder had political and business connections. Some speculate a local crime syndicate may have targeted the family, burning the house to destroy evidence. 3. The children died in the fire. Skeptics argue that all 5 perished in the blaze, and the lack of remains is due to the unusual intensity of the fire. But fire investigators say the house never reached temperatures high enough to completely incinerate 5 children. 4. Occult or secret operation. A fringe theory suggests the children were taken by a secretive group or cult. The mysterious X letter fuels speculation, though no concrete evidence exists. The legacy of the Sodder children. The Sodder family never gave up. For decades, George and Jenny Sodder put up billboards, placed ads, and investigated leads. They never recovered the children. The case remains unsolved. The Sodder children's disappearance is more than a fire. It's a mystery of vanishing without a trace, a hidden clue, and a family's lifelong agony. The Sodder mother and father lived with one chilling question until the end. Were their children dead, or had they been taken and hidden in plain sight? Even today, over 75 years later, the Sodder fire burns in legend, a case that continues to haunt investigators, historians, and anyone who believes some mysteries are never meant to be solved.
1944, Budapest, Hungary. World War II was in its darkest hour. The Nazis were rounding up Jews by the thousands, sending them to death camps, leaving streets empty of hope and full of terror. Enter Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat, a man who refused to stand by. With no army, no weapons, just courage, ingenuity, and sheer determination, Wallenberg began issuing protective passports to Jews, renting safe houses, and confronting Nazi officers directly. He didn't just save a few, he saved tens of thousands. The hero who vanished. January 17, 1945. Soviet troops entered Budapest. Wallenberg, ever confident, believed the city was finally safe. But then, a shocking turn. He was arrested by Soviet authorities, accused of espionage, the reasons murky. Eyewitnesses saw him taken from his hotel, and then he disappeared. No official record, no proof, no trace. Theories about his disappearance. Died in Soviet custody. The official Soviet explanation claimed Wallenberg died in 1947 of a heart attack in prison, but no body, no grave, no autopsy. Even decades later, researchers dispute the timeline. Survived secretly. Some claim he was kept alive for years, used as a bargaining chip or intelligence asset, moving through secret prisons under a different identity. No credible evidence has ever confirmed this. Accidental death covered up. Wallenberg may have been killed by rogue Soviet officials, and the government covered it up to avoid embarrassment. Escaped and lived in secrecy. A few theories suggest he escaped captivity, possibly even living under an assumed identity somewhere in Eastern Europe. No credible evidence has ever confirmed this. The legacy of Raoul Wallenberg. Wallenberg's disappearance is a haunting shadow over history. He is remembered as a savior, a man who risked everything for others and then vanished into the world's greatest mystery. Numerous governments, historians, and organizations have investigated, but every lead ends in frustration. The world may never know what happened to him, but his courage and humanity echo across generations. He stood against tyranny, saved thousands, and vanished, leaving a legacy that death could not erase. Raoul Wallenberg, the diplomat who faced the darkest hour of history and disappeared into its shadows.